Chapter 1066. In the center of Haotian City, there was a Hugwang Hall, which had the meaning of Hugwang Hall. If Haotian City was the center of Haotian Alliance in the military province, then Hugwang Hall was the center of the center because it was the place where the elder group was in charge. Usually, when something big happened in the military province, the elder group would hold a meeting to discuss how to deal with it. The number of elders in the elder group was not fixed, sometimes more and sometimes less, because some people had the title of elder group but were not in Haotian City all year round. Just like the chief in the past. If it wasn't for the future of his disciples, the chief wouldn't have come to Hugwang Hall at such a young age to work hard. Although there weren't many elders like the chief, there were still a few of them. On normal days, other than a few elders who stayed behind to guard the light of Peace Hall, there was basically no one around. Nobody came to disturb them either. The Haotian Alliance had all kinds of positions. If anything happened, they could solve it by themselves. In fact, the elder group didn't need to be in charge of many things. They were only responsible for the general direction. However, Hugwang Hall was also lively. There was a small meeting every 3 months and a big meeting every year. It was the time when the higher-ups of Haotian Alliance in the military province gathered. Not many people came to the small meeting. However, every time a big meeting was held, the elders of the elder committee and the chiefs of the departments would attend as long as they were free. That was because this big meeting basically determined the direction of the Haotian Alliance in the military province in the coming years. Today was the day of the annual meeting. Since the beginning of the day, cultivators with powerful auras had arrived from all over the world and rushed into the light of Harmony Hall. Most of these cultivators were old, and there were also middle-aged people, but there were no youths or youths. By the end of the day, there were almost 30 people in the hall. Each of them was a powerful figure in the top sex in the military province. Except for the elders in the elder group, all the department heads in Haotian City were here. On the main seat, Pangjin slowly opened his eyes and said, "Is everyone here?" Yes. He was the vice chief of Haotian Alliance, the vice chief of Vitality Sect, and the chief elder of Haotian City's elder group. It was customary for him to host every big meeting. Someone said, "Those who can come should be here." Yes. There were still a few empty seats, but they didn't show up at this time. They should be busy and couldn't come. This was a common thing. Pangjin nodded slightly and was about to speak when he suddenly looked outside. At the same time, the others also noticed a powerful aura was rapidly approaching. After a short while, a sage-like figure stepped in. It was the sect master of the Jade Blood sect, Tang Yifeng. He looked travel-worn, and it was unknown where he had rushed back from. "I'm late to explore the fissure. Sorry for making you wait." The sect master found Yifeng's seat. Pangjin nodded slightly, his gaze sweeping left and right as he continued, "Almost everyone is here, so let's not wait any longer. Let's begin the discussion." Yes, no. The 9 provinces people were. The situation was, the current situation, and so on. The current situation. The 9 regions' 9 provinces. Was many things, it had. They serve, was a realm cultivators, was a realm cultivators, realm cultiv off course, of realm with realm cultivators realm, of course, of them were, of course they was, of them was, of. One by one, the topics were solved. Soon they talked about the earth fissures. The insect plague came from deep underground. This was the most embarrassing problem for the cultivators in the 9 provinces. The deeper they went, the stronger the magnetic field was. It would greatly affect the cultivators' strength. Therefore, if they wanted to solve the insect plague from the root, they had to go deep into the earth fissures and find the nest of the insect clan. Only in this way could they solve the problem once and for all. All the cultivators in the Divine Sea realm had the experience of exploring the earth fissures. Sect Master Tang Yifeng, for example, had been searching in various earth fissures to see if he could find a safe way to go deep underground. Unfortunately, he didn't find anything substantial. Qianwu went out recently. He went to investigate the situation of a certain earth fissures. What they could do now was to explore as many earth fissures as possible. Then, they would gather all the information and see if they could find a way to solve the insect plague. News after news was reported by various people, but none of them made any eye-catching discoveries. This made people feel quite helpless, but this was reality. Every cultivator present was powerful, but in the face of such a disaster that engulfed the entire realm, they were still powerless. Junior brother Pang, have you found anything in other provinces? An elder of the Elder Council asked. Pang Jin shook his head. I communicated with the Deputy Alliance Masters of other provinces the day before yesterday. They didn't find anything either. That elder sighed and said, when will this world come to an end? Another elder said, the insect plague has been sweeping for 2 years. Although the impact on us cultivators is not small, we can still hold on. But for mortals, it is unbearable pain. If this situation continues for 3 to 5 years, the foundation of the cultivation world in the 9 regions will be shaken. Mortals were not like cultivators with high cultivation. They needed to eat, and cultivators with low cultivation also needed to eat. They could not use spiritual power to supplement their needs. However, many fertile fields in the 9 provinces had been destroyed, and many places had no harvest for 2 years. They had to rely on the food they had accumulated in previous years to survive. Cultivators were guarding the cities, and it was true that they could protect the cities from being attacked by the insect race. However, in many cities, there were already scenes of mortals starving to death. Cultivators and mortals were closely related. If too many mortals died, it would have an immeasurable impact on the cultivation world in the 9 regions. This was also one of the reasons why the Haotian Alliance and the Wanmo Ridge stopped their conflict in the past 2 years. Compared to the future of the entire cultivation world, the confrontation that had lasted for thousands of years was not so important. We still have to find a safe way to go deep underground. There is a magnetic field underground. The deeper we go, the lower our strength. This is an unsolvable problem. Elder Tang, did you find anything this time? Pang Jin looked at the sect leader. The sect leader shook his head. This time, I went 10,000 feet underground. I saw the insect clan but not the nest. In this place, the headmaster's power was suppressed to 70%. Besides, there were many insects in the Spirit Sea realm down there. Although he had killed many of them, the insects were endless. He had no choice but to retreat for now. Then continue to search. There is always a way out. The cultivation world in the 9 regions can't be destroyed in our generation. The sect leader nodded and was about to leave. Generally speaking, the meeting should have ended at this time. His most promising disciple had returned safely. He had received the news a month ago and had wanted to see it for a long time. However, what surprised the sect leader was that the people who should have left were all sitting upright and motionless. The sect leader could not help but stop. He vaguely sensed that they probably still had something to discuss. A month had passed. Naturally, he was not in a hurry. He stayed and observed the changes. A strange scene appeared. Everyone sat upright, and no one spoke. Even Pang Zhen, who sat at the seat of the host, remained silent. This is what happened. The sect leader was puzzled. Are you all holding back? Someone suddenly spoke. The sect leader looked up and saw that it was the head of the quartermaster department, Chao Yi. The sect leader was very surprised because the quartermaster department rarely said anything in the meeting. After all, they were in charge of military supplies, so they only needed to do their job well. It had always been others who asked them for help, and they rarely asked others for help. Whether it was the mortal world or the cultivation world, the ones in charge of money and supplies had always been the boss. He wondered what the quartermaster department had to say today. All right, since all of you are going to be mutes, then this old man will start, Chao Yi said. He raised his hand and brushed the table. Several things that looked like formation plates appeared on the table. Everyone immediately looked over. The sect leader keenly sensed that these people's eyes were a little hot, like hungry wolves who had seen their prey. Recently, some formation plates like this have appeared in the War Province. Hey, I think many of you have heard about it. Yes. After all, this thing had only appeared for a month. Moreover, because the number of formation plates was not large enough, they did not circulate widely enough. They asked, "Head Chow, what is the use of this formation plate?" "Yes. Why don't you see it for yourself?" Chow Yi smiled slightly. Then he raised his hand and took a formation plate over. The others who did not know about it also took one each. The sect leader wanted to take one, but he was too late. The formation plates were all divided up. The Divine Sea Realm cultivators who got the formation plates poured their spiritual energy into them. The next moment, a slight buzzing sound was heard and a layer of halo appeared. A formation plate covered an area with a radius of 100 feet. Several formation plates were scattered in different places and covered everyone. The Divine Sea Realm cultivators who knew about it remained calm. Those who saw the power of the formation plates for the first time raised their eyebrows and felt the mysterious power in the formation plates. What kind of formation plate is this? How can it be so magical? The Divine Sea Realm cultivator who asked first exclaimed. Although it was the first time he felt it, he immediately saw through the many magical uses of this formation plate. For a moment, many thoughts were rolling in his mind. He could almost imagine the scene where the cultivators on his side held this formation plate and killed everyone on the battlefield. The Spirit and Branches formation plate contains a Spirit and Branches formation plate. Chow Yi explained, "Everyone here is knowledgeable and many of you have dabbled in the Tao of spirit tattoos. Have you heard of such a spirit tattoo in this world?" "Yes." Everyone shook their heads. Before this formation plate appeared, no one had heard of such a magical spirit tattoo. "I can only say that there are talents in every generation. The younger generation will surpass us in time." Chow Yi sighed with emotion. "Department Leader Chow, is this formation plate made by your quartermaster department? If so, it could be widely distributed and increase the strength of the cultivators on his side. For the current situation, this thing was too important. Our quartermaster department does not have such a talent." Chow Yi was a bit sarcastic. As he spoke, he glanced at Qian Wudong who was not far away. "Please enter the latest update in your browser. Go to the Essence Library to view. To provide you with the latest update of Momo's, the Great Sage of Human Tao. In order to be able to view the latest update of this book next time, please keep your bookmark well." Chapter 1066, Formation Plate Free Reading for the Grand Council. Chapter 1067. Inside the Hall of Peace, many pairs of eyes were looking at Qian Wudong. The hierarch was surprised. To be honest, when he first saw the twin chi-connected formation, he also thought it was something developed by the Commissariat Department. It should be noted that the Commissariat Department had collected a large number of talents in refining weapons, refining elixirs, and spiritual tattoos. It could be said that all the special talents in Force Province were under the jurisdiction of the Commissariat Department in principle. If necessary, the Commissariat Department had the right to conscript any special talents in any sect for its own use. These talents with special skills were gathered in the Quartermaster Division, and they were the foundation that ensured the supply of all kinds of military supplies to the front lines. In the past, the Quartermaster Division would occasionally bring out some strange things, but they were basically flashy and useless. They were just for novelty. Because of this, the Quartermaster Department's R&D department was criticized by many people. They had been holding back their anger for many years, wanting to prove themselves. If this twin chi-connected formation disc was really something developed by the Quartermaster Department, it would be able to wash away the shame and make the Quartermaster Department famous. But now, it seemed that this thing had nothing to do with the Quartermaster Department. Instead, it seemed to be from the Law Department. The hierarch muttered to himself, "Since when did the Law Department have this kind of talent? Why are you all looking at me? Drink tea, drink tea." Qian Wudong was stared at by dozens of pairs of eyes, but his expression didn't change. He picked up the teacup in front of him and took a sip. He had heard about today's incident, so he wasn't surprised. Chow Yi slammed the table and shouted, "Don't play dumb here. This thing came from your law department. How dare you say you don't know?" "Yes. I know, of course I know. What's wrong with that?" Qian Wudong looked at Chow Yi innocently. "Your Quartermaster Division's R&D department has raised a bunch of incompetent people. What they've developed is just a bunch of fancy garbage that can't be put to great use. Someone in my law department has made the twin chi binding formation disc, and it's not like he's in your way. Brother Chow, why are you getting mad at me? Chow Yi snorted. Such a strategic treasure should be under the control of our quartermaster department. Only by using it together can it maximize its value. Qian Wudong smiled and said, the disc is in your hands. If Brother Chow wants to make it, you can ask your refiners to disassemble it and study it. It shouldn't be hard to make it, right? Your company has raised so many refiners, they can't just sit around and do nothing. They should at least display some value. How could a treasure like this be refined by just anyone? Chow Yi huffed angrily. He had done what Gan Wudong said before. As soon as he got the formation plate, he summoned the refiners under his command to disassemble the formation plate and study it. He wanted to imitate and refine it. However, the embarrassing thing was that even those famous refiners in the military province could not guarantee the success rate of refining. It was not difficult to refine the formation plate, but the difficult part was the spiritual tattoos on it. The spiritual tattoos were so complicated that it was almost impossible to perfectly brand such a spiritual tattoo in the process of refining. As a result, many weapon refiners tried for half a month and only managed to refine a mere 5 array discs. Moreover, they were all products of luck and were difficult to reproduce. If not, he wouldn't have brought this up at the meeting. He didn't want to embarrass the quartermaster division. His quartermaster division was in charge of this area. However, even with so many people, there were no outstanding results. On the other hand, it was the law division that made a breakthrough. The more Chow Yi thought about it, the more upset he felt. Why didn't he have such a talent under his command? Why did Gan Wudong have to step on dog H*T? If this thing isn't made by humans, then what is it in Brother Chow's hands? Gan Wudong chuckled. Gan Wudong. Chow Yi slammed the table again. I think your law division is tired of living. Do you still want to receive supplies from our quartermaster division in the future? Yes. Vice President, I object. Gan Wudong turned to look at Pang Zhen. This man is abusing his power to threaten me. He's planning to embezzle the resources of my law division. If he dares to be so presumptuous in front of so many officials, I don't know how he's going to suppress us behind our backs. Please, Vice Alliance leader and elders, remove him from the position of quartermaster and appoint someone else. Yes. Damn it. Chow Yi jumped onto the table angrily, rolled up his sleeves and was about to pounce on Qian Wudong. Beside him, Shi Jian, the chief of the recruitment department, and Wangu Lu, the chief of the official department, hurriedly pulled him back and comforted him. One undersky struggled as he yelled, "Come on, let's fight one-on-one." The rule of the cultivation world is that whoever has the bigger fist gets to talk. Let's see if I don't beat you to a pulp. Ha! Gan Wudong sneered. Come on. Don't be fooled by your old arms and legs. I won't go easy on you. Today, I'll let you know why people say that the older the ginger, the spicier it is. Chow Yi got even more excited. Come on, I'll wait for you here. Gan Wudong sat down and knocked on the table in front of him. All right. Pang Zhen said softly, stop it. Gan Wudong, you should stop talking. Elder Chow, go back to your seat. You're the head of a division. How can you behave like this in the meeting? All right. Since Pang Zhen had spoken, Chow Yi gave him face. He shook left and right and glared at Qian Wudong before sitting back down. Gan Wudong continued to drink his tea. Pang Zhen looked around and felt a slight headache coming on. Both of them were 9th Order Divine Sea Masters, so naturally they wouldn't be so shallow. Chow Yi's temper was indeed fiery, but that didn't mean he didn't know the gravity of the situation. Acting like this was undoubtedly a bit hurried, but it also showed how much importance he attached to the twin spirit connecting spirit array disc. The Quartermaster Division hadn't had anything good to show for so many years. If it had always been like this, it would have been fine, but the Law Division had thrown out the twin chi connected branch array disc, making the Quartermaster Division seem incompetent. This was why Chow Yi fought so hard. He was in charge of the Quartermaster Division, so he had to think about his subordinates. This was also related to the small disputes between the two in the past. The cause was the exploding fire spirit stone. When this thing appeared, Chao Yi had tried to negotiate with Gan Wudong, wanting to move the refining of the exploding fire spirit stone to the Quartermaster Division as a merit. Of course, the Quartermaster Division didn't refuse, offering to provide some material convenience, but after several failed attempts, Chao Yi could only give up. Gan Wudong insisted, and Chao Yi couldn't force his way out. This small dispute didn't affect the overall situation, but the value of the twin chi-connected branch array disk was different from that of the exploding fire spirit stone. The exploding fire spirit stone could be ignored, but the twin chi-connected branch array disk couldn't be ignored. Logically speaking, Chao Yi was right. This kind of treasure should be managed and distributed by the Quartermaster Division. This was their duty, and their job was to do this. However, the person who could refine the twin chi-connected branch array disk was from the Law Division. If Gan Wudong didn't let him go, no one could do anything. Thinking about it, Pang Zhen turned to the sect master and asked, "What does old Tang think?" The sect master was studying the array disk in his hand. He felt that this thing was wonderful. If it could really be made popular, it would definitely be a good thing. He didn't dare to say too much, but the overall strength of the Haotian alliance would increase by at least 20 to 30%, especially the level of the Cloud River True Lake. This was extremely shocking, and no elixir could compare to it. Hearing Pang Zhen's question, the sect master was confused. He didn't know why he was asked. He had been in the elder group for 2 years, but he didn't care about any specific matters. He was only here to provide someone for the disciples to rely on. Therefore, no matter if it was the big or small meeting, he rarely expressed his opinion. "Old Tang, there's something you don't know. This array disk was made by your disciple." Pang Zhen took the initiative to explain. "Made by my disciple?" The sect master was stunned. He immediately reacted, "You mean?" Pang Zhen nodded, "It's that Lu Ye." Not only did he refine the array disk, but the exploding fire spirit stone was also made by him. Originally, Qian Wudong had kept all this a secret. The Quartermaster Department only knew that the exploding fire spiritual rock was made by the Law Department, but they didn't know who made it. However, some things couldn't be ignored, especially by the Divine Sea Realm cultivators who wanted to know. During the 2 years that Lu Ye went missing, the supply of exploding fire spirit stone gradually stopped. When he returned, the supply of exploding fire spirit stone was renewed. Moreover, the twin chi connection array disk appeared. Then, the origin of these two things was clear at a glance. The sect master laughed. "This kid has such ability? I didn't know." Pang Zhen nodded. "The younger generation will surpass us in time. This world will be the world of the younger generation after all." He sighed in his heart. When Lu Yi entered the Jade Blood sect, he had watched the entire process. He did not expect that the young man, who was not valued by any sect and only had the aptitude of a one-leaf cultivator, would not only reach the Spirit Sea realm in just a few years, but he could also do things that ordinary people could not. If he had known about this earlier, his Vitality sect would have made it easier for others to accept him as their disciple. One after knowing that Lu Ye made the exploding fire spirit stone, the sect master understood why Pang Zhen asked him. He pondered for a moment and said, "It's a good thing, but the key is whether it can be mass-produced. If it can, it'll be a strategic resource. If it can't, it'll just be a novelty. It can be useful, but it won't help the general situation. Just ask Qian Wudong if it can be mass-produced. Anyway, as far as I know, all the Law Department's troops have been equipped with one recently. Even the Dispatch Department got a share." Chao Yi said lightly. Everyone knew that Qian Wudong, the head of the Law Department, and Fan Xiangyi, the head of the Dispatch Department, had a good relationship. The Dispatch Department basically had a share of everything the Law Department had. Everyone looked at Qian Wudong. Under such circumstances, Qian Wudong couldn't hide anything. In fact, he didn't have to control the distribution of the exploding fire spirit stone. It was related to the general situation of the war province. Even if he was the head of a department, he couldn't do as he pleased. However, no matter what, his soldiers had to be equipped with the exploding fire spirit stone first. In a month, they had already been equipped. It didn't matter if they transferred the distribution of the exploding fire spirit stone. It would save them some trouble. Please enter the latest update in your browser. Check it in the Essence Library. We'll provide you with the latest update of Momo's The Great Saint of Human Tao. Please save your bookmark so that you can check the latest update of this book next time. Chapter 1067, Exploding Fire Spirit Stone. Let's fight one-on-one. Chapter 1068. Of course, they couldn't let him go. Lu Ye was a member of the Law Division, so there was no room for discussion. The production is actually limited, because Lu Ye is the only one who can make this thing. I've tried to find a refiner to make it, but the results were unsatisfactory. All right. How much can he make in a day? Chao Yi asked anxiously. Not much, about 700 or 800 a day. All right. The Palace of Light fell silent for a moment, and everyone began to think quickly. 700 to 800 a day, that would be more than 20,000 a month. Moreover, each of these array discs could be used by more than 5 people at the same time. Even 10 people could use them at the same time. If one were to take a compromise, the monthly output would be enough to equip more than 100,000 cultivators. It was a strategic weapon of mass destruction. Chao Yi was anxious. He looked at Pang Zhen. Deputy, I strongly request that Lu Ye be transferred to the Quartermaster Division. This way, we can make the most of his value and strengthen the military in the shortest time possible. All right. You're dreaming. Qian Wudong glanced at him. Chao Yi shouted angrily, Is this how you talk to your senior? There's no need to respect those who take advantage of their seniority. All right. The two of them started quarreling again, each trying to argue for what was right. Pang Zhen tapped the table lightly. Only then did the two stop talking and look at him, waiting for his decision. Of course, everyone already knew what the result would be. The Quartermaster Division is in charge of the supply of military supplies. This formation disc is mysterious and should be distributed by the Quartermaster Division. Pang Zhen said softly. No one expressed their dissatisfaction, and no one interrupted. As for Lu Ye, he can continue to stay in the Law Division. What do you two think? All right. Chao Yi and Qian Wudong had no objections. Also, the fact that the twin chi formation disc came from Lu Ye must be kept a secret. Do not leak it out. Pang Zhen said in a low voice. This was a form of protection for Lu Ye. Otherwise, if the 10,000 Devil Ridge knew about this, there might be some trouble. Everyone knew the pros and cons. The argument came to an end just like that. The Quartermaster Division had obtained the authority to distribute the Kindred Spirit Array discs, and the Law Division had one less troublesome matter to deal with. Moreover, in the future, the Quartermaster Division would provide a large number of array discs to the Quartermaster Division, and the Quartermaster Division would definitely make some compensation in terms of distributing other resources. Everyone was well aware of this point, so there was no need to mention it openly. After the meeting, everyone went their separate ways. Qian Wudong and Chao Yi walked out side by side, discussing the transfer of the disc array. It was hard to tell that the two of them were arguing so much that their faces were red and their necks were thick, as if they were about to fight. They fought because they represented different positions. They didn't fight because they were both cultivators of the military province. Cultivators surrounded and chased after him. Lu Ye's identity as a disciple of the Blue Blood sect had already been established, so there was no point in sending her away. When Lu Yi returned to Fragrant Mountain after many twists and turns, the sect master gave up on this idea. Over the past few years, the sects that were about to be erased by Tianji were slowly being reborn. This old man must thank you. If it weren't for you, the Jade Blood sect would be gone by now. If that had really happened, this old man would have become a sinner of the sect. After I die, I won't be able to face my ancestors. Lu Yi immediately panicked. Sect leader, you're too serious. Disciple was just doing his duty. There's no such thing as duty or not duty. Our sect didn't give you many benefits. Instead, since you entered the sect, you've been in constant trouble. The protection this old man can provide is also extremely limited. It's not easy for you to grow up in such an environment. The sect master sighed. For instance, when Lu Yi had been captured, although he had immediately set out to rescue her, the result was that he hadn't been able to save her. For the past 2 years, he had blamed himself for this. Luckily, Lu Yi had returned in one piece, and her cultivation had even soared to the heavens, reaching the divine sea. This old man can see that you're the same as your senior brother. You're both people who are favored by Tianji and can stir up storms. But Lu Yi, your senior brother's matter is a lesson for you. You have to learn from it. I'm not asking you to hide your strength and bide your time. You're a young man. It's good that you dare to think and fight, but no matter what you do in the future, you have to consider your own safety first. In the room, Lu Yi was still working left and right, refining the explosive fire spirit stone while refining the twin chi connection array disk. A golden vortex slowly rotated in front of him, and his cultivation didn't stop. He had been in this state for a month. It was a bit boring, but cultivators were like this. If they couldn't bear the boredom, how could they talk about glory? He suddenly felt something and slowly stopped his movements. He got up and pushed the door open. At a glance, he saw a familiar figure beside the stone table in the courtyard. He hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. Sect leader. Tang Yifeng looked at the disciple in front of him and was relieved. Not bad. You didn't lose an arm or a leg. He stretched out his hand and gestured, sit. Sit. Lu Yi sat down, took out a tea set from the storage space, and boiled tea. The sect leader smiled and didn't mention the twin chi connection array disk. He just said, actually, when I took you as my disciple in the Evil Moon Valley, this old man had the idea of sending you away after a while. Sit. Lu Yi really didn't know about this and couldn't help but be stunned. Send me to where? It wasn't confirmed at that time, but you also know that this old man didn't intend to maintain the sect at that time. Taking you in was also limited by the rules. The sect's state at that time was really not suitable for taking in new disciples. I understand. Lu Yi nodded. However, something happened later that no one could control. On the way back to Fragrant Mountain with the sect leader, he was ambushed. The sect leader had no choice but to send him to the Spirit Stream battlefield. Later, his identity as a disciple of the Jade Blood sect was exposed, causing a large number of people from the Myriad Devil Ridge. This disciple will remember. Lu Yi replied and served the tea she had just brewed. The sect leader took it with relief and sipped it lightly. Lu Yi hesitated for a moment and said, Sect leader, this disciple has something to report. Yes. The sect leader drank tea and replied, in front of this old man, you don't have to worry. If you have anything to say, just say it. This old man has lived for so long and has seen everything. If you have any difficulties, I can still give you a pointer or two. Yes. Lu Yi took a deep breath. I saw eldest senior brother. The sect leader spat out a mouthful of tea. Fortunately, he turned his head away in time, otherwise he would have spat it all over Lu Ye's face. He wiped his mouth, put down the teacup, and said uncertainly, What did you say just now? This old man is old, and my hearing is a little bad. I saw eldest senior brother. Lu Yi repeated seriously. Before returning, Lu Yi had asked his eldest senior brother if he had any instructions for him. In any case, there were many people in the 9 regions that he was worried about. If he wanted to return to the 9 regions, he could still pass a few words to his eldest senior brother. However, eldest senior brother told him that he didn't need to say anything. It would only add to his worries. If they had a chance to meet in the future, everything would be clear. Lu Yi knew eldest senior brother's concerns. In the hearts of all the people close to him, he had been dead for decades. Time had wiped away many of the pain. If Lu Yi suddenly told them that eldest senior brother was still alive, it would definitely affect them. The key was that eldest senior brother was in the blood refining realm. Even if they knew that eldest senior brother was still alive, they couldn't meet him immediately. Why would they miss him so much? Therefore, Lu Yi didn't intend to tell others that eldest senior brother was still alive. However, he couldn't hide it from the sect master. There were some things that had to be said. The sect master was stunned for a moment. He laughed and said, What nonsense are you talking about? Your eldest senior brother has been dead for decades. Where can you go to see him? Sect master, this disciple is speaking the truth. Looking at Lu Ye's serious expression, the smile on the sect master's face slowly disappeared. His expression became solemn. It's like this. Lu Yi told the sect master about how he was captured by Yu Daiwei, how he met Tai Shan in the small secret realm, and how he thought of a way to collapse the small secret realm. This disciple had the experience of escaping from a small secret realm once before, so I can be considered familiar with it. I thought that after the small secret realm collapsed, this disciple would return to 9 regions. Who would have thought that I would go to a realm called the blood refining realm? He briefly talked about the general situation of the blood refining realm, skipping over his early experiences in the blood refining realm. He mentioned the Shen KC. Several decades ago, eldest senior brother went to the blood refinement realm and established the Jade Blood Holy Land there, which was the only pure land of the human race in the entire realm. The blood race army invaded from all directions, and eldest senior brother led many human cultivators in the Jade Blood Holy Land to resist them, repelling them time and time again. Also, there were more than 70 old seniors there, all of whom were top experts. For example, the 3rd-generation sect master of the Vitality sect, Senior Meng Jie, the 5th-generation sword master of the North Profound Sword sect, Senior Jian Guhong, the 1st Grand Elder of the Tsonglang sect 200 years ago, Senior Mi Xian, the 2nd-generation Valley Master of the Medicine King Valley, Granny Jiu, and a refiner called Ouyang Zi. It was with the help of these old seniors that the Jade Blood Sacred Ground was able to hold on. Even if the sect master was experienced and knowledgeable and had a calm temperament, he was still shaken by Lu Ye's words. The sect master originally thought that Lu Yi had been deceived. After all, he had never seen Feng Wujiang. Moreover, he was still young. If some expert had used some mysterious method to deceive him, it might not have been impossible. But the more he listened, the more he felt that Lu Ye's words were true. So, for the past 2 years, you weren't trapped in some small secret realm, but in this place called the blood refining realm? Yes. Lu Yi nodded. The sect leader seemed to understand. He raised his hand and pointed to the sky. This is. Only the unfathomable heaven's secret could have such an ability. That's right. The sect master was speechless for a long time. After a while, he laughed loudly. You're actually still alive? This was definitely the best news he had heard in recent years. He had been brooding over the death of his disciple for many years, but he never expected that the person he thought was dead was actually alive and well, just that he was in another domain. Moreover, the sect master smelled something unusual from Lu Ye's story. Not only had his disciple been sent to the blood refining realm, but many top experts he had only heard of but had never seen in person were also sent there. This was obviously a bit thought-provoking. Before I left, eldest senior brother told me not to say anything, but I think you should at least know this. The sect leader stroked his beard and said, Your de Shixiang has his own considerations. His advice is correct. What we're going to say today has passed through my ears. You don't have to say it to anyone else. Otherwise, if word gets out, it will cause chaos among the people. This disciple knows. Please enter the latest update in your browser. Go to the Essence Library to view. To provide you with the latest update of Great God Momo's The Great Sage of Human Tao. In order to be able to see the latest update of this book next time, please keep your bookmark well. Chapter 1068, Great Sage I Saw Eldest Senior Brother. Free reading. Chapter 1069. Since you can come back, how can you go back? The sect master asked. Lu Yi shook his head. I don't have a way for the time being, but I think that since I can go there once, I can definitely go there a second time. It's just that the time is not right yet, so I plan to improve my cultivation in these few years and rush back to help senior brother before the next blood race army besiege the holy land of Jade Blood. He probably didn't need to worry about going back. When the time was right, he would have his own way back. Tianji sent him over to let him witness all kinds of things in the blood refining realm and sent him back. The intention was obvious. The key was to improve his strength as much as possible in these few years and gather as many useful people as possible. Otherwise, when the blood race army attacked again, the holy land of Jade Blood would be in danger. It was very simple for him to increase his strength as long as he had enough battle merits. And now he was refining the explosive fire spirit rock and refining the twin chi connecting branch array disc. Every day he would obtain a large amount of battle merits, and he would not be lacking in golden spirit sticks. The key was to gather people, which was troublesome for him. This was also one of the reasons why he chose to tell the sect master about the blood refining realm. In terms of connections, the sect master was better than him. After he finished talking about his big senior brother, Lu Yi brought up another matter. Sect master, 2 years ago, I was captured by someone called Yu Daiwei, but there was someone else behind her. Yu Daiwei called him Lord Venerable. At that time, I didn't know who this Lord Venerable was. Later, when I mentioned this matter to Big Senior Brother in the blood refining world, Big Senior Brother recognized that person's background. He said that the Lord Venerable was called Taishan and was once his right-hand man. Taishan? The sect master was shocked. Shouldn't he be dead? Halfway through his words, he suddenly realized that the dead senior brother was still alive, so it was not strange that Taishan was still alive. After calming himself down, the sect master said, Taishan was indeed your senior brother's right-hand man. Back then, Taishan and Nian Yuxian were your senior brother's right-hand men. They followed your senior brother on expeditions and made a name for themselves. Lu Yi knew that Nian Yuxian used to work under senior brother. He had heard about it from second senior sister, but he didn't expect senior brother to rely on these two so much. Now, one of them had become the lord of the mysterious organization, while the other was capable of suppressing an entire mountain pass by himself. Then why did he make such a bargain? Taishan probably felt the death of eldest senior brother and was tired of the endless conflict between the two camps. Therefore, he wanted to create a third camp that could accommodate the cultivators who were tired of the conflict between the two camps like him. He captured me so that I could help him create this camp. He has something in his hand that seems to be a token to create the third camp. Apparently, only I can use that thing. Lu Yi remembered that the token was a stone plate. At that time, he naturally didn't know what the stone plate was used for, but after chatting with his eldest senior brother many times in the blood refining boundary, he gradually figured out the whole story. The sect leader nodded. Taishan's temperament is not bad. It is natural for him to have such thoughts. In fact, he is not the only cultivator in the land of the 9 prefectures who is tired of the confrontation between the two camps. If he can really raise this banner, I'm afraid he will receive the support of many people. There should be many people who are secretly in contact with him and are under his control. What do you mean? Lu Yi looked left and right with a mysterious look. The sect leader was well aware. He raised his hand and spiritual power surged. An invisible barrier covered the small courtyard, isolating it from external forces. Lu Yi raised his hand and waved. A corpse appeared in front of the sect leader. This is, 2 years ago, I led a team to the misty cliff of Mount Mi to carry out a mission. There, I encountered the Chun clan and was invited to enter. In the end, the Chun clan suddenly launched an attack for no reason. I was forced to kill them all. Later on, it was proven that the Chun clan was secretly controlled by Mount Tai. I suspect that they had received instructions from Mount Tai to capture me, but failed. Later on, Yu Daiwei appeared. After Lu Yi disappeared, Xiao Xinghe reported the changes in the Chun clan to the Law Division. The Law Division also sent a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator to investigate the scene. Unfortunately, almost all the Chun clan cultivators died that day. The rest were only mortals. They did not find any useful clues at all. When I returned this time, Yu Daiwei sensed it immediately and wanted to capture me. Before she appeared, this person blocked my way. I fought with him and wanted to capture him alive. In the end, this person died inexplicably. It was exactly the same as the Chun clan cultivators that day. Sect leader, the Chun clan is controlled by Taishan, and this person is also controlled by Taishan. Moreover, they are all loyal to Taishan. Once things go wrong, they will immediately commit suicide. While Lu Yi was speaking, the sect leader checked Zhang Song's corpse, but found nothing. He stood up and said, "So you think that Taishan should be secretly controlling more forces?" "That's for sure, but I don't know who they are." On the surface, there were only 2 people, but how many were hidden in the dark, only Taishan himself knew. The sect leader pondered for a moment. At this time of chaos in the 9 regions, there is a hidden force that is indeed worrying. Although from the current clues, the purpose of Taishan was only to eliminate the endless confrontation between the two camps and did not really want to cause chaos in the 9 regions, there were some things that could not be ignored. The 9 regions was already chaotic enough. No one could stir up trouble in the dark. In this situation, if Taishan used the power in his hands to add fuel to the fire, the 9 regions would only become more chaotic. At that time, the situation would be impossible to deal with. You don't have to worry about these things. This old man will investigate thoroughly in secret. The sect leader raised his hand and put away Zhang Song's corpse. After giving Lu Yi a few more instructions, the sect leader left. The reason he came here was to see Lu Yi, but as a result, he learned a lot of shocking news from Lu Yi, causing him to sigh with emotion. This disciple of his could also come into contact with many secrets unknown to others. This in itself was a manifestation of his strength. After seeing the sect leader off, Lu Yi returned to his room and continued the work at hand. Every 3 days, Cheng Xiu would send a large number of fire spirit stones and materials. Lu Yi worked hard to refine them. Although it was difficult to increase the production of the twin qi-connected formation in a short period of time, the supply of explosive fire spirit stones was endless. In the past, when he refined explosive fire spirit stones for the law department, it was calculated as 1,000 pieces a day. But to him, 1,000 explosive fire spirit stones a day was nothing. As long as he was willing, he could refine tens of thousands of them a day. An endless supply of explosive fire spirit stones meant an endless supply of battle merits. Lu Yi no longer cared about how many battle merits he had accumulated, because his battle merits had slowly accumulated to a level that many people could not reach in their lifetime. This meant that as long as he wanted, he could exchange for golden spiritual sticks at will to cultivate. In the history of the 9 regions, no one had ever been as rich as him. On this day, Lu Yi pushed open the door, jumped up, and rushed to the main hall of the law department. After a while, Lu Yi and Qian Wudong sat at a table in the main hall. Qian Wudong frowned. You want to take a leave? There was no other reason for this trip than to ask for a leave of absence from Qian Wudong. Yes, I have an epiphany and need to go out for a while. Lu Yi said the words he had prepared in advance. Qian Wudong looked at him deeply. Since you have an epiphany, you should go into seclusion. Why do you have to go out? It is not safe outside. How can a cultivator be safe everywhere? Lu Yi did not want to waste time with him. Just tell me if you agree or not. Qian Wudong smiled. What if I don't agree? Lu Yi frowned. My lord, I've already been refining explosive fire spirit stones and disc arrays for 3 months. Even my cultivation base has increased by 1 level. You can't expect me to keep refining like this, right? Even prisoners in prison have time to get some fresh air, not to mention that I'm not a prisoner. Lu Ye's cultivation had increased a month ago. After reaching the Spirit Sea realm, every level of cultivation consumed a lot of resources. It was impossible for others to break through so quickly. But during this time, Lu Ye's golden spirit sticks had not stopped. With the terrifying power of the talent tree, his cultivation speed was naturally faster than others. And this was under the premise that he had been refining continuously. Regardless of whether it was refining the explosive fire spirit rock or the twin qi connecting branch formation disc, it would consume his spiritual power. In other words, he was cultivating and improving his foundation while consuming his spirit energy to break through. If he just cultivated, his cultivation speed would be even faster. Qian Wudong's face turned serious. The twin spirit connected array disc is very helpful to the current situation. Not only now, but even in the future, it will be extremely important. Only you can refine it in large quantities, so your safety. I am already a second-order Spirit Sea realm. I am not a child, sir. If it was someone else, I wouldn't have to worry about it, but since it is you, I have to consider these things. Although Pangjin had issued a gag order at the meeting, and none of the Spirit Sea realm cultivators present would reveal that Lu Yi could refine the twin spirit connected array disc, he still had to be careful. Why don't you send someone to secretly protect me? Lu Yi proposed. Of course, he knew that this was impossible. Sure enough, Qian Wudong snorted. In the current situation, how can I spare anyone to protect you? Then what should I do? Lu Yi looked at him anxiously. Just stay in Grand Sky City. Qian Wudong knocked on the table. Don't go anywhere. Lu Yi got up and left. Qian Wudong was still threatening him. If you dare to run around, I will find someone to break your legs. Lu Yi thought he was just talking nonsense. Leaving the law department's main hall, he shot up into the sky. Sensing that Lu Ye's aura was getting farther and farther away, Qian Wudong couldn't help but sigh. He also knew that he couldn't stop Lu Yi, but as Lu Ye's boss, he had to show his attitude. What could he do if his subordinate didn't listen to him? He couldn't go out and catch him. As Lu Yi said, he was already a second-order Spirit Sea Realm cultivator. He was no longer a child. Please enter the latest update in your browser. Check it in the Essence Library. To provide you with the latest updates of Great God Momo's Human Race Great Sage. In order to be able to check the latest updates of this book next time, please keep your bookmark well. Chapter 1069, Spirit Sea Free Reading on Leave. Chapter 1070. After leaving Grand Sky City, Lu Yi took out a map to compare and flew in a certain direction. As for Gan Wudong's threat, he didn't take it to heart. How could he take his words seriously? 3 months of cultivation were like a day. During this period, he was constantly refining explosive fire spirit stones and twin spirit connecting array. His days were too boring. He couldn't be compared to those old Spirit Sea Realm cultivators who had been famous for a long time. They could settle down and sit in one place like a stone. In the end, he was just a young man in his early 20s. Young people had the vitality of young people. If he really lived like an old Spirit Sea Realm cultivator, he wouldn't be young anymore. He didn't have to do anything. Even if he just came out for a walk and changed the environment, he could still adjust his mood. The improvement of the Spirit Sea Realm was not only reflected in one's spirit energy storage, but also in the expansion of one's Spirit Sea. It was an all-round growth. Every level of improvement had a significant increase in strength. Compared to the previous First-Order Spirit Sea Realm, the increase in one's spirit energy storage was needless to say. The consumption of so many golden spirit sticks wasn't in vain. His Spirit Sea was obviously bigger than before, which meant that his divine sense had been strengthened. Lu Yi flew while looking down at the earth below. It was a scene of devastation. Originally, the 9 states was full of outstanding people and beautiful lands. However, after the insect race's rampage, there was rarely any greenery on the ground. For cultivators who were successful in their cultivation, these effects weren't that great. However, for cultivators who weren't very powerful or even mortals, these changes were unbearable pain. Mortals had to eat grains to survive. However, in the current environment, even the best fields had become barren. No one dared to come out and cultivate. Even if there was no guarantee that the insect race wouldn't come out and wreak havoc. In the long run, once the foundation of mortals was shaken, it would affect the entire cultivation world. It could be said that this insect race was the biggest disaster in the history of the 9 states. However, the cultivation world didn't have a good way to deal with it so far. Countless cultivators guarded the 4 directions and killed the insect race. However, if the source wasn't eliminated, the insect race wouldn't stop. Along the way, he could see groups of cultivators fighting against the insect race from time to time. Especially at the places where the cracks were, battles broke out very frequently. This was because the insectoids crawled out from the cracks in the ground. Most of the Divine Sea Realm warriors were stationed near the cracks of a certain scale. However, no matter how many Divine Sea Realm warriors there were in the military province, they could not outnumber the number of cracks in the ground. Many of the smaller fissures were unguarded, and could only rely on Cloud River Tier and True Lake Tier cultivators to kill the insects. This was also the reason why there was a shortage of manpower in the 9 prefectures. Lu Yi occasionally made a move and had some success, but it was just a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. A day later, a city appeared in the distance. The scale of the city was not large. It could only be considered a small city. Cities like this could be seen everywhere in the 9 states. Red River City. The city where Team D9 was now. There was a warrior of the Spirit Sea Realm in the city. Lu Yi didn't conceal himself when he arrived. The warrior sensed his presence and sent out his psychic power. Lu Yi responded with his psychic power as well. This was also a strange way of greeting people in the spirit sea realm. A figure flew up from the city and stood in midair, looking in the direction of Lu Yi. After a while, Lu Yi flew over and stopped 200 feet away from the warrior. The warrior of the spirit sea realm was a middle-aged man. He was a fourth-order divine sea realm cultivator. It was not high, but not low. For a small city like Red River City, it was enough. His main task was the same as Li Taibai's. There was nothing for him to do. There were many Cloud River tier and True Lake tier cultivators here, which was enough to deal with most situations. What he needed to do was to kill some spirit sea realm insectoids. Of course, if he encountered an insectoid he couldn't defeat, he could only ask for outside help. There were many top spirit sea realm cultivators in the military province on standby. When they received a request for help, they would rush to help. Lu Yi of the law department greets senior brother. Lu Yi bowed first and stated his identity. The middle-aged man returned the greeting, Long River Sect's Shi Yuan. The Long River Sect was a nearby third-grade sect. Red River City was under the rule of the Long River Sect. Now that the insectoid plague was sweeping, it was natural for the Long River Sect to send a spirit sea realm cultivator to guard the Red River City. The defense of the military province adhered to the principle of proximity. The large sects would send their own people to guard the area under their jurisdiction. Only the areas where there were no spirit sea realm cultivators in the middle grade and lower grade sects were located with the province guards send spirit sea realm cultivators there. Lu Yi of the Blue Blood sect? Shi Yuan suddenly reacted. Yes. Yes. I've heard a lot about you. Shi Yuan greeted him on the surface, but he was secretly shocked. A few years ago, Lu Yi stirred up a storm in the Spirit Stream battlefield and caused a lot of trouble. His name spread widely in the Myriad Demon Ridge, and many people from Grand Heaven Alliance paid attention to him. Shi Yuan was shocked that in just a few years, Lu Yi had already reached the Spirit Sea realm. Moreover, he had not just reached the Spirit Sea realm. From his aura, he was already a second-order Divine Sea realm cultivator. It was said that the Blue Blood sect was a tiger that would not fall. It seemed that it was true. Junior brother Lu, what brings you here? Shi Yuan asked after calming himself down. Lu Yi was definitely not here to exchange positions with him. Red River City was under the jurisdiction of the Long River sect, so if there was a need to exchange positions, it would be a Spirit Sea realm cultivator from the sect. There was no need to trouble others. I have a few relatives who work for senior brother and were passing by here, so I came to take a look. As Lu Yi spoke, he turned his head and looked towards the city wall. Several figures rushed up the wall, obviously aware of his presence and were eagerly looking over. Seeing Lu Yi look over, Lin Yinxiu jumped up and waved her hand, as if she was afraid that Lu Yi would not see her. Shi Yuan understood and smiled slightly, so that's how it is. Junior brother Lu, please go ahead, I won't delay you from catching up. Saying so, Lu Yi turned around and flew towards the city wall. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of everyone. Hoop had jumped up from the giant beetle's head and dove into Lu Ye's arms. Lu Ye's eyes were sharp and his hands were quick. He raised his hand and grabbed Hoopa by the neck, lifting it up. Hoopa whimpered, its eyes filled with helplessness. Holding Hoopa, Lu Yi looked at the familiar faces in front of him and smiled. Third senior brother, fourth senior brother. Xiao Xinghe's expression was complicated as he sighed. We can't compare. After not seeing each other for 2 years, junior brother is already at the Spirit Sea realm, but we are still at the True Lake realm. When he first met Lu Yi, his cultivation was the same as Lu Ye's. But now, he was still at the True Lake realm, while Lu Yi was already at the Spirit Sea realm. Although the difference in cultivation level was not too big, there was still a gap in realm. Li Baxian laughed. Once you are junior brother, you will always be junior brother. So what if you are at the Spirit Sea realm? Junior brother, go ahead, senior brothers will catch up soon. To be honest, the progress of their cultivation was not slow. After all of them had good aptitudes. Especially in the last 2 years, it was much easier to obtain military merits than before. In the entire 9 regions, the overall strength of the cultivators was steadily rising. But everything was afraid of comparison. With Lu Ye's progress in cultivation, their progress was nothing. Lu Ye smiled. Fourth senior brother is right. I will go ahead and scout the path for senior brothers. Brothers who had not met for a long time naturally had endless things to talk about. But the place was not right, so they could only exchange a few words. Lu Yi turned his head to the side. Lin Yinxiu immediately jumped out and greeted, "Captain!" Lu Yi laughed, "I am not the captain now. Your captain is my 3rd senior brother." Lin Yinxiu thought for a while and changed her words, "Old captain." Lu Yi was speechless. He looked at Feng Yuechan, senior sister Feng. Feng Yuechan smiled, "Your 2 junior brothers have been missing you. You have been back for so long, but you have not come to see them. You finally came today." Lu Yi explained, "I was delayed by some things." A strange thought appeared in his mind. According to seniority, Feng Yuechan was his martial niece, but he was used to calling her senior sister. It did not matter to him, but what about 4th senior brother? In the past, everyone thought that eldest senior brother had died long ago, so there were some things that did not need to be investigated. The friendship between childhood sweethearts could not be blocked by seniority. But eldest senior brother was still alive and well. If they had the chance to meet in the future, he did not know if 4th senior brother would be beaten up. "What's wrong?" Feng Yuechan looked at Lu Yi in confusion. She felt that Lu Ye's gaze was a little strange. "Nothing, I just remembered something." Lu Yi could tell the sect master about eldest senior brother's situation, but he could not tell anyone else, not even Feng Yuechan. What could he do even if he told them? The 2 realms were separated by an unknown distance, and it would only disturb one's state of mind. If he had the chance to return to the blood-refining realm in the future, he could bring Feng Yuechan along and let her meet her relatives. Looking up at Giant Armor's tall figure, Lu Yi reached out and patted him on the shoulder. Giant Armor grinned foolishly. "Didn't you say that the members of Team D9 were replenished? Why are there only a few of you?" Lu Yi asked. The team had a full complement of 6 members, but there were only 5 in front of him. Of course, if E, who was hiding in Hupo's body, was included, then there were indeed 6 people. "There is one more person preparing to welcome you, junior brother." Li Baxian faintly smiled, looking a little mysterious. Lu Yi sensed something. "I know him?" "You'll know if you know him or not." Everyone flew towards the city. The city was bustling with people. When the insect plague broke out, all the mortals within a radius of 300 miles were gathered in Red River City, so the city was a little crowded now. Fortunately, there were cultivators from the Eternal River sect guarding the city, so the city's security was not bad. However, most of the people were sallow and thin, obviously lacking in food. As everyone landed in a small courtyard, Lu Yi scanned with his divine sense and immediately understood who the 6th member of the team was. It was a reasonable thing. For pairs of eyes met. The bright-eyed woman smiled gently, looking like a dignified and knowledgeable young lady. But when she spoke, there was a familiar tone. "You didn't get your soul stolen by a wild fox and still know to come back. Not bad. Please enter the latest update in your browser. Check it in the Essence Library. To provide you with the latest update of Great God Momo's The Great Sage. In order to be able to check the latest update of this book next time, please be sure to keep your bookmark well." Chapter 1070, Great Sage Free Reading in Red River City. Chapter 1071. Hua Si had left the Cloud River battlefield. This meant that the 5 Poisons pool would no longer be able to provide her with any assistance in cultivation. This forbidden area would most likely become like the 1,000 Poisons forest in the Spirit Stream battlefield, becoming unworthy of its name. There are only demons and monsters in the wild. How could there be a fox that can steal souls? Lu Yi looked at her with a smile. Ever since they had returned from the Wushuang continent, they had not seen each other again. Counting the years, it had been almost 3 years. For a young man like Lu Yi, this kind of separation was still very long. But this was the nature of cultivators. They couldn't be like mortal men and women who spent all day together. Each of them had their own matters to attend to. A sudden encounter wouldn't diminish the affection in their hearts because of the passage of time. Instead, it would ferment the feelings in their hearts because of the long-term concern and longing. Besides, how can wildflowers have the fragrance of home flowers? Hua Xi was very surprised. Shouldn't it be the other way around? Lu Yi said seriously. Every flower enters its own eye. I don't care about others, I just like home flowers. Hua Xi raised her hand to shield her forehead, pretending to say, Where are the home flowers? Why can't I see them? They are in my eyes. Hua Xi suddenly blushed and softly said, Nonsense. To the side, third senior brother and fourth senior brother had a look of disdain as they quietly watched the two flirt in public. On the contrary, Feng Yuechan and Lin Yinxiu were watching with great interest. Yi poked her little head out from behind Hua Xi and winked at Lu Yi. Lu Yi laughed and waved at her. Look, this is my family's little flower. Yi jumped with joy and rushed into Lu Ye's arms. She hugged him tightly and pinched the flesh on Lu Ye's waist. Next time, don't leave me in Hupe. Lu Yi felt the pain but did not show it on his face. I won't. Only then did Yi release him in satisfaction. After a short while, everyone took their seats. Hua Xi served them tea and Xiao Xinghe raised his cup, saying, Come, let us first congratulate little junior apprentice brother on his safe return, second congratulate little junior apprentice brother on reaching the divine sea, and third congratulate us on being able to follow in little junior apprentice brother's footsteps. Everyone, let us drink. Lu Yeqi asked, How come there's only tea, there's no wine? Li Baxian smacked his lips. In today's world, we can't even guarantee food to eat, how can we have surplus food to make wine? Xiao Shidi, don't mention the word wine, Shi Xiang, I haven't tasted wine for more than half a year, I really miss it. Lu Yi laughed and took out a few jars from his storage space and placed them on the table. Li Baxian's eyes immediately lit up. He opened the jar and refilled everyone's cups. Even the amber was given a bowl. Xiao Xinghe raised his cup again, and everyone drank together. The atmosphere was lively. There was no wine to accompany it, but everyone was still in high spirits, especially Li Baxian, who drank 3 bowls in a row before letting out a satisfied breath. Reuniting after such a long time, they naturally had many things to talk about. They didn't stick to any topic and chatted freely. After a while, Xiao Xinghe asked, Xiao Shidi, where have you been trapped for more than 2 years? These words immediately aroused everyone's interest and they all looked over. Lu Yi pondered for a moment and said, I can't say exactly where it is for the time being, but I promise that if there's a chance in the future, I'll take everyone to have a look. Returning to the blood-refining realm, he was bound to pull a group of helpers, and Team D9 naturally couldn't escape. To others, he could lie and say that he was trapped in a small secret realm, but to the people close to him, he couldn't lie to them. However, he couldn't say much about the blood-refining realm for the time being, so he could only give this guarantee. Everyone didn't ask further. Since Lu Yi said so, there would be a day when they would know. They weren't in a hurry, and the reason why they asked was only out of concern. Lu Yi then asked about the various things that happened to everyone here, and Xiao Xinghe and Li Baxian talked one after another. They drank until the sky turned dark, and then until dawn, Lu Ye's wine reserve was emptied. Hu Po was sprawled on the ground, snoring so loudly that it shook the heavens. The women's faces were all red, especially Hua Xi, whose neck was glowing with a pink luster. At dawn, a shrill whistle suddenly sounded from the city, and then a large number of cultivators rose into the sky. Xiao Xinghe also stood up and raised his eyebrows. The insect tide is here. Although there are cultivators killing insects everywhere, and it's rare to see insect tides of this scale now, this kind of thing still happens occasionally. This was especially true when powerful divine sea realm insectoids emerged from the fissures. They would lead a large number of insectoids to attack human settlements. Red River City had experienced a few such insectoid waves, but they were all small in scale. Everyone worked together to deal with them. The situation this time was no different. Xiao Shidi, let's stop drinking today. When the situation stabilizes in the future, we brothers will have a good gathering again. Okay, Lu Yi replied. Everyone stood up, picked up the last of the wine in their cups, and drank it in one gulp. "Let's go," Xiao Xinghe ordered and flew into the air. The others followed closely behind, and even Hua Xiai, a medical cultivator, was no exception. When she flew into the air, she raised her hand and waved. In the distortion of space, a huge golden toad appeared out of thin air. She stood on the toad's head and smiled at Lu Yi. "Don't die." "All right." Lu Yi was still looking at her golden toad. He didn't know where Hua Xiai found this thing, but now it seemed very likely that it came from a dangerous place like the Five Poison Pool. Hearing Hua Xi's words, he quickly nodded. Although they had only been together for a short time, although there were still a lot of things to say, although he couldn't bear to part, Lu Yi knew that this was the only way. His friends had their own paths, and he also had his own things to do. It was like the water of a river. When they started from the source, they embraced and protected each other, but in the process of flowing, there would be many forks and tributaries. However, as long as they continued to flow, they would eventually meet in the sea. The insect tide was about to arrive. As the only divine ocean realm cultivator in the city, Shi Yuan was arranging his subordinates. From the current situation, the scale of the insect tide this time wasn't large, and Red River City's defenses could completely resist it. What made him feel a little troubled was that there were more than 10 divine ocean realm insects in the insect tide this time. Due to the insect race's low intelligence, human cultivators could easily fight against many of the same level of cultivation. However, once the number of insects increased to a certain extent, it would be very difficult to deal with them. It was true that the insect race's intelligence was low, but they had their own areas of expertise, and that was their various strange abilities, especially the sturdy defense provided by their thick carapaces. In the 2 years that the insect tide had swept through the 9 prefectures, many divine ocean realm cultivators of the human race had lost their lives due to carelessness. Shi Yuan didn't want to follow in their footsteps. He was hesitating whether to ask for reinforcements when he suddenly saw a ray of light soaring into the sky somewhere in the city. Immediately after, the ray of light made a turn in midair and brazenly charged in the direction of the insect tide. Shi Yuan was shocked, but he quickly reacted. The figure that charged out was Lu Ye, who had come to Red River City yesterday. As expected, he was young and impetuous, but his actions were a little reckless. Before he could stop him, the ray of light had already charged into the insect tide. Immediately after, Shi Yuan saw a scene that shocked him. As the saber light surged, it stirred up a storm of blood wherever it went, as if it was plowing a courtyard. It plowed a vacuum in the insect tide. Regardless of whether it was Cloud River Realm or True Lake Realm insects, it was difficult for them to fight back. In the blink of an eye, the figure charged into the center of the insect tide, where the divine ocean realm insects gathered. It was still a sharp saber light. Even with Shi Yuan's eyesight, he couldn't even catch the traces of the figure's movements. In his field of vision, the divine ocean realm insects were dismembered one after another. Insect blood and wine fell to the ground, and severed limbs flew into the air. After a few back and forth, the huge insect tide was directly divided, and the dozen or so divine ocean realm insects were all killed without exception. The ray of light quickly flew away, and a voice came from afar. "The mountains are high and the rivers are long. Senior brothers and sisters, let's meet again another day." Shi Yuan stared at it, and his mind was shaken for a long time. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief. His reputation is well-deserved. A few years ago, Lu Ye of the Jade Blood sect stirred up a big storm, but that was only in the Spirit Stream realm and Cloud River realm. To be honest, other than the Divine Ocean Realm cultivators who had been paying attention to him, most of the Divine Ocean Realm cultivators didn't pay much attention to him. Those who could show off their strength in the Spirit Stream realm and Cloud River realm might not be able to do anything in the True Lake realm or Divine Ocean realm, let alone raise their strength in the Divine Ocean realm. The growth of a cultivator was always accompanied by all kinds of accidents. Moreover, someone like Lu Ye, who showed off his ability in the beginning, might not be able to go far. In fact, in recent years, Shi Yuan hadn't heard of Lu Ye doing anything big. In the eyes of people, this was a sign that his potential had been exhausted. But after seeing him today, Shi Yuan knew that some people were destined to shine. Even if it was only a short silence, there would be a time when they would erupt fiercely. Shi Yuan was a fourth-order divine ocean realm cultivator, 2 realms higher than Liu Ye, but even if he had 10 times the courage, he couldn't single-handedly charge into the enemy's den like Liu Ye. If he really did that, he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to return alive. The rise of Liu Ye of the Jade Blood sect was already somewhat unstoppable. Calming his mind, Shi Yuan shouted, "Open the array, kill the enemy." Originally, he planned to rely on Red River City's defensive array to block the enemy. This was a safe and secure method that would minimize the losses on his side. However, many cultivators in the city had seen the scene of Liu Ye sweeping away the enemy with their own eyes. They were all excited and their fighting spirit was high. If he continued to act according to his original plan, it would only waste their morale. Since that was the case, he might as well kill his way out. An insect tide without a divine ocean realm cultivator was not enough. With an order, the defensive array was removed. Many cultivators rushed forward like a torrent to meet the chaotic insect race. A small-scale battle immediately began. Liu Ye was already several hundred kilometers away. He didn't kill the insect race not because he didn't want to, but because there was no need to. For the current cultivators of the 9 provinces, the insect race was a walking achievement. If he killed too many, the benefits for others would be reduced. However, since he had encountered it, he couldn't just sit back and watch. Killing the divine ocean realm insects in the insect tide was the best way to deal with it. As for the remaining insect race, he could leave it to the cultivators of Red River City. Please enter the latest update in your browser. Check it in the Essence Book Pavilion. To provide you with the latest updates of Great God Momo's Human Race Great Sage. In order to be able to check the latest updates of this book next time, please be sure to save your bookmark. Chapter 1071, Invincible Jiahua and Wildflower read for free. Chapter 1072. Flying through the air, Liu Ye traveled at a leisurely pace. When Shi Feng left Vast Sky City, he had 2 things to do. The first was to visit 3rd Senior Brother, 4th Senior Brother, and the others in Red River City. He had already done that. The second thing was to go to the front line where the 2 camps were fighting. Liu Ye's main body had already broken through to the 2nd Order Divine Sea Realm, but his avatar was still the same, so Liu Ye had to recondense his avatar to the 2nd Order Divine Sea Realm. Only then would his avatar be able to display greater strength. The prerequisite for condensing a clone was to retrieve the original clone. Therefore, Liu Ye had to make a trip no matter what. Fortunately, he had reached the Divine Sea Realm very quickly, so it wouldn't take too long. Another day later, Liu Ye had already crossed the front line of Grand Sky Alliance and arrived at the center of Shocking Waves Lake Pass and Dark Moon Forest Pass. It wasn't good to go any further as he would reach the Dark Moon Forest Pass defensive zone. He was a member of Grand Sky Alliance after all. Although the 2 camps hadn't reached a truce, they had tacitly stopped fighting and focused on fighting against the insect plague. If he rashly entered the Myriad Demon Ridge's defensive zone, it might cause unnecessary misunderstandings. He found a crack in the ground and dived in. He killed the nearby insectoids and waited quietly. A sword light swept across the sky. His clone, Li Tai-bai, stood on the sword light and rushed towards his main body. It had to be said that among all the schools, sword cultivators were the most elegant when it came to flying on their swords. No other school could compare to this. Along the way, they would occasionally meet some Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators who were hunting insects outside. They would all stop and salute respectfully. In these 3 months, Li Tai-bai had made quite a name for himself in the Dark Moon Forest Pass. Every time he took action, he was always successful. Many cultivators in the Myriad Devil Ridge were indebted to him for saving their lives. The cultivators of Dark Moon Forest Pass loved and respected this new little pass master from the bottom of their hearts. Lin Yu was also very satisfied with his performance. Ever since she had Li Tai-bai, the burden on her body had been greatly reduced. She was no longer as tired as before. Now, she was glowing every day. Spreading out his divine sense, he monitored the surroundings. After making sure that there was no one around, he plunged into the fissure below. A moment later, the avatar stood in front of Lu Yi. Lu Yi raised his hand and placed it on the avatar's chest. The roots of the talent tree extended and entered the avatar's body. In the blink of an eye, the avatar Li Taibai disappeared, leaving behind only the scarlet dragon battle robe and the sword gourd. The moment Lu Yi raised his hand to catch it, the spirit energy around his body suddenly burst forth. His entire body turned into a stream of light as he flew to the side. While he was in the air, the sword chi from the sword gourd flew towards a certain direction. At the same time, he raised his hand and pulled out the mountain blade at his waist. His body followed closely behind the sword chi as he slashed down. Where the sword light wreaked havoc, the void distorted, and a figure appeared out of thin air. The sudden attack, coupled with the shock in his mind, caused the figure to be flustered. He barely managed to block the onslaught of the many sword lights, but another sharp saber light came at him. In a hurry, his berserk spirit energy surged, transforming into a massive impact that met the saber light. With a boom, spirit energy surged, and Lu Ye's body uncontrollably retreated. The figure that had suddenly appeared also retreated a dozen steps before stabilizing himself. Several dozen meters away, Lu Yi raised his saber, his eyes drooping as he expressionlessly looked ahead. He had been careless. When the avatar had arrived, there had been a tail following behind him. It was none other than Lu Yueme from the Startling Waves Lake Pass. Lu Yi didn't know what method Lu Yueme had used to conceal her figure and aura, but it clearly wasn't her own ability. From what he knew, Lu Yueme was a magic cultivator. Even if her cultivation was much higher than the avatar's, it was impossible for her to conceal herself so perfectly. When the avatar had arrived, it had been paying attention to the surroundings. There had been no abnormalities at all, or else the avatar wouldn't have rushed down to meet up with the main body. As for why Lu Yueme had followed the avatar, there was no need to think about it. Naturally, it was to harm the avatar. This woman harbored a grudge against Li Taibai. Back then, in order to avenge her son, she didn't hesitate to use the power of the Startling Waves Lake Pass. During the battle, she didn't care about anything else and only attacked Li Taibai in order to kill him with her own hands. In that battle, she had used her spiritual energy on Li Taibai and attacked fiercely. She had thought that Li Taibai would definitely die, and it could be considered as her revenge. After that, news of Li Taibai's death had indeed spread from the Dark Moon Forest Pass, and the matter had come to an end. However, in recent months, Li Taibai had frequently taken action to save the cultivators of the Myriad Demons Ridge. Occasionally, he would also encounter some cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance. Lu Yueme was in charge of the Startling Waves Lake Pass. As long as one wasn't blind or deaf, they would naturally receive some news about Li Taibai. How could Lu Yueme tolerate the fact that the enemy who had killed her son had come back to life? Since the day she received the news, she had been thinking about how to kill Li Taibai. It wasn't a wise move to make a move so blatantly. It wasn't because she was considering the current situation of the two camps. She had to avenge her son. To a woman like her, the two camps had nothing to do with her. As long as she could kill Li Taibai and avenge her son, she wouldn't hesitate to start another war between the two camps. However, she was the only Spirit Sea Realm cultivator in the Startling Waves Lake Pass. The original leader of the Startling Waves Lake Pass, Che Xiong, had been transferred away. On the other hand, there was still Lin Yu at the Dark Moon Forest Pass. If she couldn't kill Li Taibai in one strike, Lin Yu would definitely intervene. At that time, she might not be able to win against two opponents. Moreover, Li Taibai's range of activity had always been small, and he didn't give Lu Yueme too many opportunities. Until today, when Li Taibai crossed the middle line between the two camps, Lu Yueme secretly followed him. When she saw the opportunity, she sneaked into the fissure and waited for the opportunity to make a move. In this kind of environment, coupled with her cultivation far exceeding Li Taibai's, she was confident that she could end the battle in less than half a cup of tea's time. As for what problems would arise after killing Li Taibai, she didn't even bother to think about it. Her plan was very good. In order to not be noticed by Li Taibai, she even used an extremely precious artifact to smoothly sneak into the fissure with Li Taibai. However, before she could take action, she saw an incomprehensible scene. Lu Ye was actually waiting here. When Li Taibai stepped forward, Lu Ye raised his hand and Li Taibai disappeared. Even if Lu Yuemei was a 7th-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator, she was still shocked by this scene and for a moment, accidentally revealing a trace of her aura. What followed was what happened just now. As their 4 eyes met, all kinds of thoughts flashed across Lu Ye's mind. Although he didn't know how things had reached this point, he could still guess the general situation. It wasn't that he wasn't careful enough, it was just that there was no such thing as being a thief for 1,000 days. Lu Yuemei came from the Heavenly Yuan sect, so she must have some rare treasures on hand. Coupled with her high cultivation, if she really wanted to hide, it would be difficult for his clone to detect her. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Lu Ye's murderous intent soared. It wasn't that Li Taibai's identity couldn't be exposed. If it was exposed, so be it. At worst, his clone wouldn't go to the Dark Moon Forest Pass, so there wouldn't be any substantial losses. It was just that in the current situation, even if he was willing to compromise, Lu Yuemei wouldn't. Not to mention the fact that his clone Li Taibai had killed her son, Lu Yuemei wouldn't let this matter go. Even his main body had some grievances with Lu Yuemei. When he had transferred his 3rd senior brother from the Dark Moon Forest Pass, Lu Yuemei had chased them all the way back. If it weren't for the sect master and Gan Wu Dang arriving in time, the consequences would have been unimaginable. At that time, his cultivation wasn't high, so he couldn't fight back against Lu Yuemei and could only be beaten like a punching bag. If it weren't for the golden body token, he would have already died. Now, with the passage of time, he had the capital to compete with her. While he was filled with murderous intent, Lu Yuemei also revealed her murderous intent. In the end, she was an experienced and knowledgeable person, so although she was shocked by the strange scene she had just witnessed, she quickly reacted. Li Taibai was Lu Ye's clone. She couldn't figure out how Lu Ye, a mere artifact cultivator, could cultivate such an exquisite clone technique. This kind of mysterious secret technique was generally something only the top cultivators were qualified to master. Even she hadn't even crossed the threshold yet, let alone used it. But this didn't hinder her determination to eradicate Lu Ye here. For her, this was a pleasant surprise. Li Taibai had killed her son, so he had to be eliminated. Lu Ye wasn't a good person either. She had tried to kill him but failed, so their relationship had worsened, so there was no possibility of reconciliation. Lu Ye's cultivation had advanced at an incredible speed. In just 2 or 3 years, he had already reached the 2nd-order Divine Sea Realm. In the future, his cultivation would definitely surpass hers. At that time, there was no guarantee he wouldn't come to settle accounts with her. If she could eliminate Lu Ye at this time, it would be tantamount to removing one of her biggest worries. How could Lu Yuemei let go of such a good opportunity? This thought flashed through the minds of the two, but in the next moment, Lu Yi raised his blade and rushed towards Lu Yuemei like a bolt of lightning. At the same time, Lu Yuemei raised her hand and launched a series of spells at Lu Yi. At the same time, she quickly retreated. There was no exchange of words as both sides understood each other's intentions. This was destined to be a battle to the death. Lu Yuemei came from a famous sect and her aptitude was quite good. Her combat experience was extremely rich, so she naturally knew that as an artifact cultivator, what she feared the most was being approached by an artifact cultivator, even if the artifact cultivator's cultivation was far inferior to hers. Seeing so many exquisite secret techniques, Lu Yuemei's heart sank. She expected that with the gap between their cultivations, once she used her secret techniques, Lu Ye would be flustered to deal with them. However, to her surprise, Lu Ye's saber technique was impenetrable, and the secret techniques she sent towards him were all shattered. Amidst the chaos, Lu Ye's figure rapidly approached her. How was this a 2nd-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator? With the strength Lu Ye was showing now, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to call him a 5th-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator. Chapter 1073. The killing intent in Lu Yuemei's heart burned even more fiercely as she unleashed her spells. Lu Ye had always been famous for being able to kill enemies above his level. Judging from this brief exchange of blows, his reputation was indeed well-deserved. Therefore, she could not allow him to continue to grow. Otherwise, she would not be his opponent in a few years' time. With this thought in mind, Lu Yueme's attacks became even more ruthless. She did not have any intention of probing Lu Ye's strength at all. All of a sudden, the cracks in the ground were filled with spells that blotted out the sky and earth. Among them, there were a few thick thunderbolts that rumbled. The Heaven Yuan sect was a sect that produced many spell cultivators, especially those of the lightning element. This might have something to do with their sect's treasure, the destructive lightning spear. Among the many spells, the lightning element was the most violent. Its lethality was also the most terrifying. Compared to other elements, it was also the fastest. As soon as these bolts of lightning appeared, the clear sky exploded. Lu Ye's attack was immediately blocked. As the Pan Mountain saber slashed apart the lightning, his entire body stiffened. Lightning quickly swam around the surface of his body. How could Lu Yueme miss such a good opportunity? More bolts of lightning shot towards Lu Yi. She was determined to kill him in one fell swoop. Lu Ye's hair stood on end. It was not because he was agitated by the lightning, but because he instinctively sensed danger. He rarely suffered in front of a spell cultivator. Even when he fought against Yu Daiwei last time, he was not at a disadvantage. But that battle was completely different from this one. Yu Daiwei did not have any intention of killing him. She was only following Tai Shan's orders to capture Lu Yi alive. So, although she fought fiercely with Lu Yi, she did not have the heart to fight to the death. Lu Yi also did not have the heart to fight at that time. That battle was purely to test his own strength. But this time, whether it was him or Lu Yueme, both of them had the intention of killing the other. The ferocity of their attacks was completely different from before. Thunder rolled over. Lu Ye's body was still a little stiff, so it was difficult for him to dodge such an attack. In a hurry, Hu Pu, who was crouching on his shoulder, let out a tiger roar and leaped out. His small body expanded in the wind, and in the blink of an eye he revealed his true form. Demonic chi surged, and his ferocious aura soared to the sky. The lightning struck Hu Po's body, instantly scorching Hu Po's skin and flesh. Hu Po shrank back to the size of a cat and fell straight down the fissure. A hand reached out and scooped Hu Po up. It was Lu Yi, who had recovered. He raised his hand and placed Hu Po on his shoulder. Once again he faced the storm of spells and charged forward. After suffering a loss, Lu Yi had become much more cautious. He avoided Lu Yueme's many spells as much as he could. If he couldn't avoid them, he would meet them with his saber. As for lightning spells, he wouldn't even touch them. Lightning spells were indeed violent and powerful, but they had a huge flaw, and that was that they weren't easy to control. Unlike other spells, where a spell cultivator could still control them slightly after casting them, lightning spells were cast out instantly. Because their speed was too fast, there was no way to control them. This gave Lu Yi room to dodge. Of course, one's eyesight had to be accurate and one's movements had to be fast. Otherwise, he would still be struck. The environment below the fissure was complex. If a true lake stage cultivator came here, they might be greatly affected when moving around. However, spiritual sea stage cultivators had spiritual sense to monitor them. Although they would be affected to a certain extent, it wasn't obvious. Two figures quickly swept through the fissure, one in front and one behind. Wherever they passed, the world energy around them would become chaotic. Lu Yi felt more and more that he lacked a way to quickly approach his enemy. Last time, when he fought with Yu Daiwei, he had this feeling, and this time, it was even more so. If he could quickly approach his enemy, not to mention Lu Yueme, who was only a 7th-order Divine Sea Stage cultivator, even if she was a 9th-order Divine Sea Stage cultivator, she would still be able to withstand a few slashes from his saber. If he was facing a spell cultivator of the same level, it would be too difficult for Lu Yi to get close. When a spell cultivator used their spells, their speed would be greatly affected, giving Lu Yi an opportunity to close in. But after returning to the 9 states, he had met 2 female spell cultivators, one 8th-order Divine Sea Stage and the other 7th-order Divine Sea Stage cultivators. Their cultivations were far above his, and the gap between their cultivations couldn't be closed. This made it very difficult for him to get close to them. Lu Yi originally wanted to show weakness to his enemy, then launch a sudden attack to settle the score, but after fighting for less than 10 breaths, he gave up on this plan. Although Lu Yueme was a woman, she was also a battle veteran. As a spell cultivator, she wouldn't easily give him an opportunity to get close to her. Moreover, as they fought, Lu Yi clearly felt a powerful aura awakening below the fissure. It was definitely a divine sea realm insect race cultivator who had probably been alarmed by the battle above. What was even more uncomfortable was that these powerful insect race cultivators were rapidly approaching from below. Once these insect race cultivators entered the battlefield, the situation would inevitably become chaotic. At that time, it would be difficult to kill Lu Yueme. If Lu Yueme escaped today, the fact that Li Taibai was his clone would inevitably be exposed. He couldn't continue fighting like this. He couldn't give Lu Yueme a way out, nor could he give himself a way out. Since there were many things he couldn't do, he had to go all out. Lu Yi raised his hand and took out an object, poured his spirit energy into it, and threw it straight at Lu Yueme. Lu Yueme saw Lu Ye's movements and saw a ball of light quickly rushing towards her. She hurriedly urged her spirit techniques to meet it. Although she didn't know what Lu Yi had thrown at her, she still had her guard up. What surprised her was that all her spirit techniques had no effect. Hitting the ball of light was no different from hitting nothing. There was also an inexplicable force that descended from the sky and fell on her body, resonating with the ball of light. Only then did Lu Yueme see what was inside the ball of light. The battle ring. How could she be unfamiliar with this thing? Thinking back to that day, when Lu Yi came to Shocking Wave Lake Pass to recruit Xiao Xinghe, he'd utilized the combat arena. In the end, it caused one of her capable subordinates to perish on the spot, causing her plans to fail. But she didn't expect that after 2 or 3 years, Lu Yi would summon the battle ring again, and this time, it was against her. In the battle arena, it was a fight to the death. There would always be only one person who could walk out alive. Lu Yueme was furious. She admitted that Lu Yi's strength was amazing, and he had the foundation to kill enemies above his realm. This could be seen from the brief exchange just now, but there was also a limit to surpassing one's realm. What gave him such confidence that he dared to use the battle ring against her? The battle ring. There was no time to think about it. The light flashed and the figures of Lu Yi and Lu Yueme both disappeared. The violent spirit energy fluctuations slowly subsided, but below the crack, the movements of Taoan and Rong Rong were getting louder and louder. A moment later, a large number of insects, led by many divine sea realm insects, crawled out from the depths of the ground and swarmed out. In the space of the battle ring, as soon as Lu Yueme appeared, she spread out her spirit sense and quickly locked onto Lu Ye's position. He was just a few dozen meters away from her, not much different from before she entered the battle ring. But the scene imprinted in her eyes startled her, because Lu Ye's appearance at the moment had changed greatly. His whole body was wrapped in rich qi and blood, and his whole body was blooming with blood-red light. His figure was obviously taller and more slender, and the breath on his body had become extremely strange, as if there were traces of the demonic beast's spirit energy mixed in. But it was undeniable that at this moment, his breath had become extremely violent and oppressive. Looking carefully, there was an extra tail of spirit energy behind Lu Yi, and the word, king, was faintly discernible on his forehead. If someone who didn't know better saw this appearance, they would think that he was an incomplete demonic beast. But Lu Yueme knew that this was the Beast Tamer School's beast transformation secret technique. In the 9 regions, there were many schools, and the Beast Tamer School was only one of them. But the Beast Tamer School had always been in an awkward position, because their strength was completely dependent on the number and quality of the demonic beasts under their command. Moreover, because they placed too much emphasis on external forces, like the Yenshur School, they couldn't go too far on the road of cultivation. There were many low-level cultivators, but very few strong ones. But this situation was broken a few years ago. In the Tianji treasury of the 9 regions, there were some jade slips about the supreme mysteries of the Beast Tamer School, and many Beast Tamer School cultivators regarded them as treasures. There were also Beast Tamer School cultivators in the Heavenly Yuan sect, So Lu Yueme wasn't completely unaware of these things. She knew that the strongest mystery of the Beast Tamer School was the beast transformation secret technique that could fuse with one's life source demonic beast. Lu Yi also cultivated the Beast Tamer School. This guy indeed had a demonic beast following him. Just now, that demonic beast even risked its life to protect its master, using its own body to block her lightning. It was reasonable for Lu Yi to cultivate the Beast Tamer School. But what Lu Yueme didn't expect was that this guy could actually use the beast transformation secret technique. This was something that many cultivators who majored in beast taming could not do. Many secret techniques had appeared in the heavenly secret treasure trove for several years, and basically all the cultivators of the beast taming school would buy a copy to study. However, up until now, how many people had been able to fuse with their own life beasts? At the very least, Lu Yueme had never heard of anyone who could do this. Today was the first time she had seen it. It was inconceivable that a weapon cultivator had cultivated the secret of the clone and displayed the strongest mystery of the Beast Tamer School. What kind of monstrous talent was this? Many thoughts flashed through her mind, but it didn't stop her from raising her hand to kill the enemy. It was still the endless power of the spell, maintaining a violent offensive. It had always been the only way for spell cultivators to kill the enemy. The enemy could block 1 or 2 spells, but as long as the rhythm of the attack was in the hands of the spell cultivator, then the enemy would always make mistakes. But with Lu Ye's actions, Lu Yueme was shocked. The moment the red light flashed, she almost lost sight of Lu Yi. Compared to before, Lu Ye's current speed could be described as skyrocketing. His movements and turns were also much more agile than before. This wasn't just due to the beast transformation, but also the support of the blood-stained spirit pattern. Since he had decided to go all out, he wouldn't hold back. Therefore, the moment he entered the battle stage, Lu Yi exploded a drop of essence blood, using the power of the essence blood to activate the blood-stained spirit pattern and beast transformation. It was the same as what he thought back in the blood refinement realm. The power of essence blood saved him a lot of time, so he didn't need to slowly accumulate power and could directly activate his killer move. His body was like a swimming dragon as he rushed forward. Amber's tender voice sounded in his heart. Use me in the battle, use me to be invincible. Please enter the latest update in your browser, check it in the Essence Library. To provide you with the latest update of Great God Momo's The Great Sage of Human Tao. In order to be able to check the latest update of this book next time, please keep your bookmark well. Chapter 1073, Beast Tamer School Go All Out to Read for Free. Chapter 1074. Shrouded in a blood-red light, Lu Ye's figure dashed forward like a wolf, dodging one technique after another as he rapidly closed the distance between him and Lu Yueme. As he rushed forward, he sent out a series of saber waves, each of which was like a crescent moon, cutting through the void and attacking the enemy from various angles. Lu Yueme gritted her teeth and madly pushed her spirit energy to cast a number of exquisite techniques, attacking Lu Yi to obstruct his advance while resisting the incoming saber waves. For a time, she was going all out. This was something she hadn't expected before she attacked. She had thought that there was a huge gap in strength between them, and even if Lu Yi had the reputation of being able to fight above his realm, it would at most take her some effort to defeat him. However, not long after the battle began, she was forced to go all out. The strength Lu Yi displayed made her have no choice but to treat him as an opponent on the same level. Both of them were defending and attacking at the same time, but one was retreating while the other was advancing. For a time, the area between the two was filled with techniques and saber waves, creating a lively atmosphere. However, Lu Yueme knew that this environment was extremely disadvantageous for her because this was the space of the battle stage. Although this space was barely enough for her to move around and display her skills, it was still limited and not as spacious as the outside world. Normally, when facing an opponent who was 5 minor realms lower in cultivation, Lu Yueme could have easily used her divine sense to obstruct and interfere, perhaps even clinching victory with her divine sense attack, but at this moment, she could not afford to be distracted, because even if she went all out, the distance between them was rapidly closing. Lu Ye's movements were too fast, so fast that she could barely lock onto her opponent's aura with her divine sense. As he ran, this person was like a wild beast. His entire body exuded a violent aura. Even though her cultivation was higher, this kind of aura that wanted to devour everything still made her heart palpitate. She could only gamble that Lu Yi wouldn't be able to maintain this state for long. This also coincided with some of the drawbacks of cultivators using explosive means. Although they could gain more strength in a short time, they couldn't maintain it for long. A figure flashed in front of her as Lu Yi rushed forward. It had only been 5 breaths since they entered the battle stage. She was a 7th-order Divine Sea Dharma cultivator, yet an Engineer Realm Weapon cultivator managed to get close to her. Although she had expected it, it was still too fast. Seeing Lu Ye's blade coming down, Lu Yuemei had no intention of dodging. At such a close distance, she might not be able to dodge, and even if she did, her aura would be weaker than her opponent's. What followed would be an endless pursuit. So, she raised her hand and summoned an object. At the same time, she raised her other hand. Lightning swam between his 5 fingers. With a loud crack, the lightning surged. At the moment the Pan Mountain blade slashed down, Lu Yuemei's body was covered in a layer of dazzling light. It was a protective spiritual treasure that she had activated. This was a necessary defensive measure for magic cultivators. Their physical bodies were weaker than those of the other factions, so in terms of defense, they relied on external objects other than their own spells. A cultivator at Lu Yuemei's level naturally wielded a spirit treasure. Lu Ye's blade-wielding right arm swelled slightly for an instant. The color of the blood and qi on his arm became a bit denser than the rest of his body. The Pan Shan saber instantly slashed down. It looked like a single slash, but in reality, there were at least 7 or 8 slashes. Consecutive slashes. In such a situation, this simple technique was the most practical. It was even more practical than the Tyrant Saber technique. When the blade fell, a thick bolt of lightning also attacked him head-on. Having suffered a loss just now, Lu Yi naturally knew the power of this thunder attribute spell. But at such a close distance, there was no way he could dodge. So, when the Pan Shan saber slashed down, several layers of defensive spirit runes appeared on his chest. When the cracking sound was heard, Lu Yuemei's expression changed. The protective light on her body caved in fiercely, its color instantly dimming. Extremely heavy. Incomparably sharp. This was what Lu Yuemei felt when the long saber slashed down. One could imagine that if she hadn't activated her protective spiritual treasure in time, her weak body would have been split in 2. It was a saber that had chopped down, but what landed on his body was like a mountain with a sharp blade. This was an extremely contradictory feeling. As soon as the 2 figures came into contact, they were sent flying. Although Lu Yuemei's protective spiritual treasure blocked the violent attack, the power of the attack itself couldn't be dispelled. Lu Yi, on the other hand, was bombarded by the power of the lightning. The many layers of defensive spirit runes he had hurriedly erected were also shattered. This showed the terrifying power of the attack. Before it could be completely dispelled, lightning snakes slithered around his body in the air, covered by the blood-red light, causing his hair to stand on end. He lowered his body and slid back more than 100 feet before he could barely stabilize himself. Without any pause, he pounced on Lu Yuemei again. Behind him, waves of air exploded, visible to the naked eye. At the same time, many spell arts suddenly came crashing down on Lu Yuemei. Lu Yuemei turned pale with fright. She had no idea where these spell arts came from. At this moment, her body was unstable. Under the huge impact, the blood in her chest was in turmoil. She could only activate her protective spiritual treasure. Many spell arts fell on her body, but they were all blocked by her protective spiritual treasure. She was not harmed in the slightest. Even the light around her body didn't dim. Finally stabilizing her body, Lu Yuemei glanced around and saw a young girl with a delicate figure and an ethereal temperament standing in the corner of the battle stage, urging her spell arts to attack her. Who is this? Where did she come from? Lu Yuemei couldn't be blamed for being blind. After entering the battle stage, all her attention had been focused on Lu Yi. What's more, She didn't expect that there would be a third party inside the battle stage. This was completely illogical. The battle stage was a unique treasure, and only the person who activated it and those who were implicated would be dragged into this space. It was absolutely impossible for others to enter, because this was a spatial battlefield that had been opened up by the unfathomable mysteries of heaven. In the 9 provinces, who could be stronger than Heaven G? To her, this young girl's cultivation wasn't high, only true Lake Realm's 6th or 7th order. Normally, she could easily destroy such an enemy and the other party's attacks wouldn't be able to harm her. But at this moment, her enemy was Lu Yi, and the sudden appearance of such a variable gave her a headache. It was only natural that Yi would appear on the battle stage. Lu Yi had activated his beastification secret technique and merged with Hupe, so Yi naturally left his body. She was smart enough to hide at the first opportunity, not making a move at all. She knew that with her own strength, she wouldn't be able to play a decisive role in a battle like this. So, she only made a move at the critical moment to harass Lu Yueme. The effect was remarkable. Even if the spell arts she used didn't cause any harm to Lu Yueme, just distracting Lu Yueme for a moment was a great help to Lu Yi. The most obvious result was that Lu Yi instantly approached within 10 meters of Lu Yueme. The same scene repeated itself as before. Both of them activated their spells and saber auras. Lu Ye's figure moved, and Lu Yueme retreated quickly. However, they could only watch as the distance between them narrowed. This time, they were closing in even faster than before. Although the battle didn't last long, Lu Yi had slowly adapted to his increased speed and strength, and was also slowly adapting to Lu Yueme's attack rhythm. This was very dangerous for a magic attribute cultivator. While Lu Yi was running, Yi didn't remain idle either. She continued to use her spell arts to attack Lu Yueme from afar, not hoping to achieve much, but simply to distract Lu Yueme and consume some of her strength. Lu Yi closed in again and slashed down with his saber, causing the light protecting Lu Yueme's body to dim. Even if it was a spirit artifact, in the end, it was still an inanimate object and had a limit to how much it could withstand. Lu Ye's current saber strike was so terrifying that such a spirit artifact could block it once, twice, or even 3 times, but it absolutely couldn't block his endless attacks. The 2 figures were sent flying again. A trace of panic flashed across Lu Yueme's eyes, and she no longer had the confidence she had before. She suddenly realized that if the situation continued to develop like this, the situation would become very bad for her. Her spirit artifact wouldn't last much longer. Perhaps it would shatter under the next blow, or perhaps even the next. Once her spirit artifact shattered and Lu Yi closed in on her, the consequences would be unimaginable. Although she still had other spirit artifacts she could use, how many slashes could they withstand from Lu Ye's saber? Such a terrifying saber strike wasn't something a second-order Divine Sea Realm weapon cultivator could wield. She had to break this stalemate before that happened. She couldn't let her opponent continue to display his strengths. A trace of sorrow surged from the depths of her heart. She never thought that one day she would be forced to this extent by a weapon cultivator whose cultivation was 5 minor realms lower than hers. They were both cultivators, so how could he be so monstrous? Before the battle began, she realized that she couldn't let Lu Yi continue to grow, because sooner or later, he would have the strength to threaten her, and with his terrifying cultivation speed, it wouldn't be long before that happened. But after the battle began, she realized that this person already had the strength to threaten her. If they were in the outside world, she would have already fled. Even if there was only the slightest risk, she would still prioritize her own safety. But this was the battle stage, an enclosed environment. The Udai, Ida rule cut off all her delusions. Since that was the case, she would fight to the death. Lu Yueme's offensive suddenly weakened, making it easier for Lu Yi to rush forward. He instinctively felt that there was a trap, because the battle had only been going on for 30 breaths. Lu Yueme, a 7th-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator, shouldn't have weakened so quickly. Such a change was clearly intentional. She was pretending to be weak to the enemy. He was sure that Lu Yueme was scheming something, but he didn't know what she wanted to do. He didn't have time to think too much. In a life-or-death battle, hesitation was the most taboo. Using two of his trump cards at the same time consumed a lot of his strength, so he had to end this battle quickly. The longer it dragged on, the more disadvantageous it would be for him. Please enter the latest update in your browser. Go to the Essence Book Pavilion to view, providing you with the latest update of Great God Momo's Human Race Great Sage. In order to be able to view the latest updates of this book next time, please be sure to keep your bookmark well. Chapter 1074, Battle Stage. You die, I live. Read for free. Chapter 1075. Lu Yi didn't act like before. Since he sensed that Lu Yueme was deliberately showing weakness, he naturally kept an eye out. He raised his saber and stabbed forward. The entire battle stage seemed to darken for a moment. Then, dazzling starlight fell, each of which was a sharp saber light. When the starlight fell, the protective spiritual light on Lu Yueme's body fluctuated violently and suddenly shattered. However, she had clearly expected this, so when this layer of protective spiritual light shattered, a different layer of protective spiritual light appeared. She had already used her second protective spiritual treasure. As the light was dense, strands of lightning suddenly swam from the surface of her body, turning into a huge ball of lightning in the blink of an eye. The ball of lightning suddenly exploded and spread out with lightning speed. In an instant, the area within a radius of 300 feet turned into a pool of lightning. Lightning interweaved within it like a swarm of dancing snakes. When he saw the lightning surging out of Lu Yueme's body, Lu Yi realized that something was wrong. In addition, he was prepared, so after stabbing out with his saber, he wanted to withdraw. However, no matter how fast he couldn't be faster than the lightning power. The pool of lightning spread out and drowned him. His entire body trembled like a sieve, and the mountain plate saber in his hand almost slipped out of his hand. He wanted to escape the range of the lightning pool, but under the corrosion of the lightning power, his body couldn't move smoothly. It was as if he had become a marionette, his movements stiff. The lethality of Lu Yueme's lightning pool secret technique this time was much weaker than before, but the constantly slithering lightning snakes were a huge hindrance to Lu Ye's movements, making him feel as if he had fallen into a swamp. The enemy was targeting him like this to limit his speed. What followed next would probably be a storm of attacks. However, when he looked up and saw the scene, Lu Yi couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Because Lu Yueme's current state was actually the same as his. Her movements were halting and halting, as if she was another marionette. Lu Yi immediately understood that this lightning pool secret technique not only affected him, but also Lu Yueme. No wonder she hadn't used it. This clearly wasn't because Lu Yueme's cultivation wasn't good enough, but because the secret technique itself was strange. Then he saw a fierce glint in Lu Yueme's eyes. Immediately after, the power of her divine spirit fluctuated wildly. In his field of vision, Lu Yueme turned into a beam of light and rushed toward him at an incredible speed. She crashed into his head, and it was as if an invisible sledgehammer had smashed into his head. Lu Yi couldn't help but take a step back. Lu Yi hurriedly stabilized his body. His body sank slightly as he fixed himself in place. He finally knew what Lu Yueme wanted to do. This woman actually wanted to have a battle of souls with him. She'd obviously realized that if she were to continue fighting like that in the space of the combat arena, there was a high chance that she'd perish. Thus, she'd played to her strengths and avoided her weaknesses and forced herself to fight it out with her soul. The lightning pool was only used to restrict her movements so that it would be easier for her to use her soul secret technique. The figure of Lu Yueme that he had seen earlier was not her physical body, but her soul. That was why it had crashed into his mind. It had to be said that Lu Yueme had made an extremely wise choice and was extremely decisive. This was the shrewdness of a battle veteran. In a contest of physical strength, Lu Yueme couldn't gain the slightest advantage and was even at a disadvantage. If she continued fighting like this, her chances of winning were very small. Naturally, she wouldn't take this risk. Since she couldn't win in a physical contest, she would open up a battlefield with her soul. Her thinking was very simple. No matter how strong Lu Ye's foundation was, he was still just a second-order divine sea cultivator. She might not be able to crush Lu Yi with her physical body, but her soul shouldn't be a problem, right? This was the self-confidence of a 7th-order divine sea cultivator. Of course, making such a decision also showed her courage. Although there were clashes between divine sea realm cultivators, such a direct battle between divine sea realm cultivators was extremely rare. This was because such a battle was far more dangerous than a normal battle. A single mistake could cause damage to the divine sea realm cultivators, divine sea realm cultivators, divine sea realm cultivators, divine sea realm cultivators, divine sea realm. As she expected, Lu Yi's soul defense wasn't too strong, so it didn't take her much effort to break through it, and her soul rushed into Lu Yi's soul sea. At a glance, she was slightly surprised because the scale of this soul sea was much larger than the 2nd-order divine sea cultivators she knew. What a monster! Not only is his physical foundation so strong, but his soul sea is also far superior to others in the same realm. Suppressing these distracting thoughts, Lu Yueme raised her hand and sent out a series of sharp attacks towards Lu Ye's soul sea. In an instant, the calm sea became calm and turbulent. Fighting a soul battle in someone else's soul sea had its advantages and disadvantages. The advantage was that she could act unscrupulously, and any soul secret technique she used would damage her opponent's soul sea. The disadvantage was that her own soul couldn't be effectively replenished. On the other hand, because the enemy had the home field advantage, as long as their soul sea didn't break, they would have an endless supply of spiritual energy. Lu Yueme had cultivated for many years and had broken through to the divine sea realm many years ago. Although she hadn't experienced this kind of soul battle many times, she was still much more experienced than Lu Yi. As such, she immediately set out to destroy Lu Ye's soul sea. She knew that the fiercer her offensive was, the more difficult it would be for her opponent. While she was stirring up trouble, in the center of her soul sea, a soul avatar suddenly appeared. It was none other than Lu Yi, who had immersed himself in his soul avatar. As soon as he saw Lu Yueme's actions, he flew into a rage. In a flash, he rushed towards Lu Yueme. As he moved forward, his mind moved slightly, and pillars of water gushed out from his spirit sea and attacked Lu Yueme. That was the counterattack of his own spiritual power. Lu Yueme didn't have any intention of evading and simply continued to push her spiritual energy, turning it into a series of slashes that cut through the water pillars. Even Lu Ye's soul avatar was shaken by her attacks. If it weren't for the fact that he was in his home field and could easily replenish his soul avatar would likely have been shattered. This was the rhythm of a battle. Lu Yueme laughed sarcastically. Lu Yi, today you will die. Lu Yi remained silent, his face gloomy. 1 inch his own home field, his enemy had actually dared to show off her strength like this. This was simply unjustifiable. Lu Yi felt as if a bandit had broken into his home, not only robbing him of his belongings but also taunting him. But there was nothing he could do about this. In the end, he had only reached the divine sea realm half a year ago and had never had the experience of fighting with another's soul avatar before. This was the first time he had experienced something like this, so it was a bit strange. Moreover, in such a battle, he couldn't display the full strength of his mortal body. He could only continue to rush towards Lu Yueme, at the same time mobilizing the strength of his divine sea to turn into massive waves that swept towards her, hoping to do something. Everything he did was useless. Whether it was himself or the massive waves of his divine sea, they were all intercepted by Lu Yueme. Although the situation was embarrassing, he didn't panic. This was because his divine sea had the soul pagoda suppressing it, so even if his spiritual energy was exhausted, his life wouldn't be in danger. Unless Lu Yueme had the ability to break through the soul pagoda and completely destroy his divine sea. But the soul pagoda was a soul artifact, so how could it be so easy to break through? Moreover, Lu Yueme was fighting an away battle, so there was no way for her to replenish her spiritual energy. Once her attacks weakened, this crisis would be resolved. But this kind of battle really made him feel aggrieved. In the end, he was a weapon cultivator. Fighting with his bare hands like this, he really had no place to use his strength. At this moment, if only he had a saber in his hand. As this thought flashed through his mind, Lu Yi suddenly thought of something and his figure that was rushing towards Lu Yueme stopped in place. Lu Yueme sensed this and raised her hand, sending many slashes towards Lu Ye's soul avatar. But along the way, she was blocked by layers of water curtains, so she couldn't use her full strength. These layers of water curtains were all manifestations of spiritual energy. Every time a layer was broken, it meant that Lu Ye's spiritual energy was consumed. Once the consumption was too great, it would be extremely disadvantageous for Lu Yi. As they attacked and defended, Lu Yueme suddenly felt a sense of unease in her heart, but where this feeling came from was vague. L10 and now that she was in the middle of a fight, she didn't have time to think too much. The spiritual energy slashes were endless, breaking through layer after layer of water curtains. Then, Lu Yueme keenly sensed that something was not very coordinated. The new layer of water curtains that rose closest to her actually took the initiative to separate from the left and right. The next moment, Lu Ye's soul avatar rushed out. Lu Yueme coldly snorted and instantly sent out spiritual energy slashes, one after another, with an aggressive momentum. She had dealt with Lu Ye's soul avatar in this way just now. Every time, Lu Yi was beaten so badly that he could only dodge. However, this time, Lu Yi was different from his usual self and didn't dodge. Saber light suddenly swept out, breaking all of Lu Yueme's spiritual energy slashes. Where did this saber light come from? Lu Yueme was startled, and when she looked over, she couldn't be more shocked. It was because Lu Ye was holding a saber in his hand at this moment, and that saber looked so familiar. It was his magic weapon saber. How could a magic weapon saber be brought into the Divine Sea? Or was the magic weapon saber itself a soul weapon? But this was too ridiculous. A magic weapon was a magic weapon, and a soul weapon was a soul weapon. It was impossible to mix them up. Many thoughts flashed through Lu Yueme's mind, but she really couldn't understand how to explain the change in front of her. Of course she was confused because the saber in Lu Ye's hand wasn't the Panshan saber. Although the Panshan saber was a top-grade magic weapon, it couldn't be brought into the Divine Sea. Lu Yi was holding the soul-severing saber. However, because of the soul-severing saber's uniqueness, it transformed into the Panshan saber's appearance. To Lu Yi, this was the saber he was most familiar with and could maximize his strength as much as possible. Just now, he was lamenting that he didn't have a saber in his hand, and then he thought of the soul-severing saber. However, as soon as he obtained the soul-severing saber, he fused it with the Panshan saber, resulting in the upgrade of the Panshan saber. Thus, he had a misconception and didn't think of bringing the soul-severing saber into the Divine Sea. Since this idea had arisen, after a little testing, he smoothly brought the soul-severing saber into the Divine Sea. Please enter the latest update in your browser and view it in the Essence Library. To provide you with the latest update of Great God Momo's Human Tao Great Sage, please save your bookmark so that you can read the latest update in the future. Chapter 1075, Soul-Severing Saber Soul Strife is free to read. Chapter 1076. Now that he had this saber in hand, Lu Yi felt that his whole body had mellowed, and he was no longer as powerless as before. Being on his Divine Sea Realm's home turf, Lu Ye's soul body arrived in front of Lu Yueme almost instantly. Before Lu Yueme had time to recover from the shock on her face, a saber light slashed towards her. In a hurry, she could only push her strength to protect herself. She had cultivated a soul secret technique, so she had both offensive and defensive means. The external manifestation of this was a barrier in front of her. As the saber fell, the barrier burst like a bubble. Lu Yueme's face changed drastically as she finally determined that the saber in Lu Ye's hand was a soul artifact, and an extremely good one at that. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for it to cause such obvious damage to her soul defense. Clenching her teeth, Lu Yueme was filled with unwillingness. Her strategy had not been wrong. Unable to gain the upper hand in terms of physical strength, she had even fallen into a disadvantage, so she could only compete with her soul. It turned out that her soul was indeed much stronger than Lu Ye's. But she never expected that Lu Ye, a second-order Divine Sea cultivator, would have such a powerful soul artifact. That was a soul artifact. Even she, a 7th-order divine sea cultivator, did not have one. How could Luya have one? But considering the heritage of Blue Blood sect and its current situation, it wasn't strange for Tang Yifeng to bestow a soul artifact to protect himself. She naturally attributed the origin of the soul-splitting saber to Blue Blood sect, which was also reasonable. With her soul defense broken, the soul-splitting saber still fell straight down. Lu Yueme hurriedly retreated, but the saber light was like a maggot in her bones, unable to escape. On top of that, this was Lu Ye's home turf. In terms of speed, she couldn't be faster than Lu Yi, which was the biggest drawback of an away battle. The mountain-ascending saber struck Lu Yueme's soul body, causing her to scream as if she had suffered great pain. At the same time, a soul attack also fell on Lu Ye's body. It was indeed very painful. His soul avatar immediately felt like it was being torn apart. There was no blood flowing out of the wound. After all, it was a soul avatar, so only spiritual energy was escaping through the wound. However, Lu Yi could replenish his spiritual energy at any time, so it only took a moment for his wounds to heal. Lu Yueme didn't have such convenience. Just as she recovered from the intense pain, Lu Yi once again raised her sword and slashed at her. Unable to defend or evade, Lu Yueme screamed even more miserably after being stabbed a second time. The pain in her soul was not something an ordinary person could endure. This time, Lu Yueme's instinctive counterattack was narrowly avoided by Lu Yi, leaving him unharmed. After being stabbed twice, Lu Yueme knew that she couldn't continue like this. She couldn't help but want to retreat. She wanted to escape. Lu Yi saw her actions, so how could she let her do as she pleased? She had inexplicably run into his spirit sea and run amok. Now that she had sensed that something was wrong, she wanted to escape. How could there be such a good thing in this world? He raised his hand and pressed it down. Then he suddenly raised his hand and shouted, "Up!" The seawater below suddenly began to boil. Then, a tall tower rose into the air and hovered above the divine sea. Spurred on by Lu Ye's spiritual energy, the tower shook and suddenly expanded outwards. In the blink of an eye, the huge tower passed over Lu Yi and Lu Yueme and enveloped the entire divine sea, turning it into a cage. Lu Yueme slammed into the tower's wall and desperately discovered that she couldn't break through the tower's protection. In other words, she was trapped. Her eyes trembling violently, Lu Yueme stared at the huge tower that covered the entire divine sea, her heart filled with bitterness. Another soul artifact. And it was a defensive soul artifact. Blue Blood sect? Sure enough, even a dead tiger would not fall. It wasn't until this moment that she realized that she had made an extremely wrong choice. If she hadn't started a battle of souls and only fought Lu Yi with her spirit techniques, she might have had a chance to turn the tables, but when she decided to take the risk of starting a battle of souls, her fate was already sealed. She was also a treacherous little thief. He clearly had such a defensive soul artifact, but he didn't use it when she invaded his spirit sea, only activating it when she wanted to escape. If he had this tower to protect her when she tried to invade his spirit sea, she would never have succeeded. Lu Yueme had misunderstood Lu Yi. Although he had obtained the soul-suppressing tower for a long time, he was only at the true lake realm when he obtained it. Although he had a spiritual sense soul avatar, it was still different from a true spirit sea realm cultivator. He wasn't too clear about the full power of the soul-suppressing tower and only thought that it was used to suppress his spirit sea and protect it from being broken. This fierce battle with Lu Yueme allowed him to discover another ability of the soul-suppressing tower, which was to seal off his spirit sea. With the soul-suppressing tower as a cage and Lu Yi holding the saber in his hand, Lu Yueme knew that her chances of survival were slim and her panicked expression calmed down. Asterisk dong dong dong. Asterisk, a rhythmic sound rang out from the depths of her heart. She looked up and saw Lu Yi walking over step by step, neither fast nor slow. The thumping sound was the sound of his footsteps landing on the ground. Lu Yi raised the soul-severing saber and pointed it at Lu Yueme. Lu Yi calmly said, "Come, let's fight to the death." As soon as she finished speaking, Lu Yueme had already activated her spiritual energy slash. Lu Yi rushed forward, cutting off the numerous incoming attacks before slashing his saber down on Lu Yueme's soul body. Lu Yueme had been struck twice before, causing her to scream miserably, but now that she was in a desperate situation, she only let out a muffled groan and refused to cry out. In this battle, no matter what, only one person could survive, so any begging for mercy or showing weakness was meaningless. This had already been decided the moment Lu Yi summoned the battle stage. Although she knew that she could no longer control life and death, at the very least, she could allow herself to walk a little more calmly. In front of a young second-order Divine Sea cultivator, he had no choice but to lose face. Slash after slash, Lu Yueme's soul body continued to dim. By the time Lu Yi passed by her, Lu Yueme's originally solid soul body had become extremely illusory, like a candle in the wind that could be extinguished at any moment. She grit her teeth and uttered a final vicious curse. "Even if I become a ghost, I won't let you go." Her remaining strength fluctuated wildly, and her illusory soul body became unstable, showing signs of collapse. She would die, but she would never die at the hands of a junior like Lu Yi. Suicide was her last shred of face and perseverance. Lu Yi, who had his back to her, turned around and slashed his soul-splitting saber across her soul body's neck, causing a small crack to appear. Lu Yueme's expression suddenly twisted. She never expected that Lu Yi would not even leave her with this last shred of face. Her expression was vicious and she seemed to want to say something, but her soul body had already collapsed, turning into specks of light and disappearing. Lu Yi quietly looked in the direction she disappeared, not feeling the joy of killing a strong enemy. In the end, Lu Yueme and he were cultivators from the same camp. Not to mention the same camp, after 2 years in the blood refining world, he didn't have much killing intent towards unrelated myriad Demon Ridge cultivators. Why did they have to fight each other to the death? In the blood refining world, there were many old seniors who came from different camps. They could peacefully coexist, persisting in their efforts towards a common goal, yet they never fought each other. Although he had such thoughts, he didn't agree with Tai Shan's ideas. In his opinion, Tai Shan's ideas were unreliable. How could a grudge that had persisted for thousands of years be resolved by creating a new camp? In this world, there might be many people like him who were tired of the endless struggle between the two camps. But when one was involved, there were always many things that were beyond one's control. Of course, although killing Lu Yueme didn't bring him any joy, it didn't bring him any sorrow. This accidental encounter was originally a life or death struggle. It could only be said that this was a messy account. He came here this time to refine an avatar, but he ended up bumping into Lu Yueme. And after learning that Li Taibai was Lu Ye's avatar, Lu Yueme's killing intent rose. If others wanted to kill him, he would certainly fight back. He couldn't use his own life to help others. Since he wanted to fight back, he had to be thorough. So he lived and Lu Yueme died. It was that simple. It could be considered as revenge for that day. Back when he went to Startling Waves Lake Pass to conscript 3rd senior apprentice brother Xiao Xinghe, Lu Yueme chased after him without regard for her status. If he hadn't activated the golden body medallion to protect her, she would have most likely died. Lu Yi remembered this debt. With a thought, Lu Yi hurriedly dispersed his consciousness. The next moment, his consciousness returned. The space of the battle stage was rapidly collapsing. Now that life and death had been determined, the space of the battle stage naturally couldn't be maintained. Lu Yueme was still standing nearby, but she was no longer breathing. Lu Yi hurriedly dispelled the beast transformation technique and shouted, "E." He flashed over and disappeared into Hupo's body. Hupo looked somewhat exhausted. This was the aftereffect of using beast transformation every time. Not to mention Hupo, even Lu Yi himself had expended a great deal of energy. It wasn't just the consumption of his physical foundation, but also his spirit. However, as long as his foundation wasn't damaged, he could recover after a period of rest. The space collapsed. The next moment, Lu Yi appeared in the previous fissure. He frowned because he was surrounded by insectoids from all directions, and there was no lack of powerful Divine Sea Realm insectoids among them. Before summoning the battle stage, Lu Yi had sensed the abnormality of the insectoids beneath the fissure. That was why he decisively summoned the battle stage, so that the insectoids wouldn't interfere with his battle with Lu Yueme. Now that the battle was over, although it hadn't been long, the number of insectoids swarming out was unusually large. As soon as he appeared, he was completely surrounded by insectoids. The insectoids with low intelligence naturally didn't expect a human to suddenly appear here. However, they didn't think too much about it and instinctively launched an attack on Lu Yi. Lu Yi brandished his saber and was about to break out of the encirclement. He had expended too much energy at the moment, so it wasn't suitable for him to stay here any longer. However, before he could do anything, a woman's voice came from afar. "Li Taibai, where are you?" Lin Yu had actually found him. Please enter the latest update in your browser. Check it in the Essence Library. Providing you with the latest update of Great God Momo's The Great Sage Human Race. In order for you to be able to check the latest update of this book next time, please keep your bookmark well. Chapter 1076, Battle Stage Lu Yueme's Death for free reading. Chapter 1077. Lin Yu wouldn't appear here for no reason. Since she could call out Li Taibai's name, she must have received some news. This wasn't surprising. When Lu Yi and Lu Yueme first fought in the fissure, the commotion was quite big. Otherwise, it wouldn't have attracted the attention of the underground insect race. If there were cultivators nearby, they should have noticed. Some myriad Demon Ridge cultivators probably noticed the battle here and passed the news to Lin Yu. Lin Yu was worried about his safety, so she came to investigate. She was a thoughtful person. But facing Lu Yi was a bit awkward. He couldn't meet Lin Yu face to face. After all, they were on different sides. Should he fight or not? If it was under normal circumstances, he could just hide and wait for Lin Yu to leave. But now, there were insect race cultivators everywhere, so he couldn't hide at all. He could only activate the 1,000-face mask and transform into Li Taibai's appearance. During the fierce battle, he put on the Scarlet Dragon battle robe, hung the sword gourd on his waist, put away the mountain coiling saber, and put the amber into his spirit beast bag. After a series of actions, he was surrounded by insect race cultivators from all directions. Several Divine Sea Realm insect race cultivators were eyeing him. With a flash of sword light, sword chi overflowed and cleared a large vacuum in an instant. Insect blood and severed limbs scattered everywhere. Lu Yi rushed up and rushed out of the fissure in a few breaths. Not far away, a figure was besieged by insect race cultivators. It was Lin Yu. Although she was a 7th-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator, the same as Lu Yueme, the number and quality of the insect race cultivators that appeared this time were far greater than before. This was also the reason why she couldn't enter the fissure to search for Li Taibai. Fortunately, she could rely on her own cultivation to hold on. Hearing the sound of a sword, she turned her head and saw a familiar figure at a glance. She was overjoyed and called out, "Li Taibai." Lu Yi greeted her and soon met up with her. "Let's go," Lu Yi called out. He had consumed too much energy and didn't want to stay here and fight with the insect race. What he needed to do now was recover and adjust his breathing. Lin Yu followed his advice and the two immediately turned around and rushed towards the Dark Moon Forest Pass. Suddenly, they broke out of the encirclement. Many insect race cultivators behind them, but they were quickly shaken off. The path ahead was still blocked by insectoids, but they did not pose much of a threat. Flying through the air, Lu Yi looked down with a frown. All he could see were insectoids of various shapes and sizes. It could be said that this was a sizable insectoid tide, and there was still an endless stream of insectoids pouring out from the fissure he had escaped from, increasing the size of the insectoid tide. In the past 2 years in the 9 regions, there had been countless insect swarms of all sizes in various regions. They had all crawled out from different cracks in the ground. Moreover, the insect race was extremely sensitive to spiritual energy fluctuations. Therefore, as long as they gathered into a tide, they would inevitably swarm towards the gathering place of the human race. Their current location was in the middle of the Dark Moon Forest Pass and the Shocking Waves Lake Pass. They were slightly closer to the Dark Moon Forest Pass. One could foresee that the insect tide would definitely cause a certain degree of impact to the two passes. What the cultivators at the two mountain passes had to do was to defend against the insectoid swarm and exterminate the insectoids. Lin Yu was already arranging for the cultivators of the Demon's Ridge to return. It was difficult for an individual to fight against such a large insect tide, even for cultivators of the Spirit Sea realm. They could only defend the mountain pass and rely on the fortifications there to resist the enemy. The Dark Moon Forest Pass had experienced this many times, so he knew how to deal with it. After sending out messages, Lin Yu finally had time to talk to Lu Yi. Junior brother Tai Bai, were you fighting with Lu Yueme before? Lu Yi knew that she would ask about the smoke and had already thought about it, so he replied, that's right. There was no way to deny it. Within a radius of 1,000 kilometers, there were only 3 Spirit Sea realm cultivators. Some Demon's Ridge cultivators had already noticed the fluctuations of a battle between Spirit Sea realm cultivators and reported it to Lin Yu. Lin Yu was not a fool. She would not have come to find him. Moreover, Lu Yueme's death had to have a place. Lin Yu could not help but be shocked. Where is she? Just now, she only saw Lu Yi rushing out from the crack in the ground. There was no trace of Lu Yueme at all. She's dead, Lu Yi said concisely. Lin Yu was even more shocked. Her expression changed. How did she die? It was not that she had any friendship with Lu Yueme, but they were both 7th-order Divine Sea realm cultivators. Moreover, she was weaker than Lu Yueme. If there was any danger that could kill Lu Yueme, it could also take her life. She had to be careful. Lu Yi naturally would not say that he was the one who killed her. Not to mention whether Lin Yu would believe him or not. Even if she did, there were many things that could not be explained. He simply said, she was attacked by the insect race during the battle and died. In any case, Lu Yueme did die in the crack in the ground, and there were so many insect race cultivators. It was just right to push the blame to the insect race. In the past 2 years, there had been many Spirit Sea realm cultivators who had died at the hands of the insect race. There were many 8th or 9th order Divine Sea realm cultivators among them. There were also powerful existences among the insect race. Lin Yu could not help but feel a little absent-minded. Lin Yu had been guarding the Dark Moon Forest Pass for more than 10 years, and Lu Yueme had also been guarding the Shocking Waves Lake Pass for a long time. Both of them were female cultivators with similar age and strength. It could be said that they had crossed swords many times and regarded each other as their opponents. This was also the reason why the Myriad Demon Ridge had Lin Yu guard the Dark Moon Forest Pass, and Grand Heaven Alliance had Lu Yueme guard the Shocking Waves Lake Pass. The two women had crossed swords for many years, and it could be said that they knew each other well. With the two of them guarding one side, their camps could rest assured and there would not be any major mistakes. However, they did not expect that the opponent they had been entangled with for so many years would die just like that. Lin Yu suddenly felt a little emotional. She did not know the meaning of their rivalry all these years. On the way back, they did not see a single person. The Myriad Demon Ridge had received instructions from Lin Yu, so they naturally returned to the Dark Moon Forest Pass early and made preparations to guard the pass. On the walls of the pass, many defensive fortifications were ready. They were waiting for the insect race to attack, so that they could kill them all. Junior brother Tai Bai, you should rest first. I don't think the insect race will spread here within a day, Lin Yu said. The main reason was that she could sense that Lu Yi had expended a lot of energy. The battle was imminent, and he was the only divine ocean realm cultivator under him. Naturally, she had to take good care of him. Lu Yi did not say much and walked towards his residence. After entering, he sat down cross-legged and consumed a spiritual pill to recover his energy. Although he had no choice but to return to the Dark Moon Forest Pass, he had experienced it once before. Hence, it was not difficult for him to escape. He just had to find an opportunity. However, he had other worries, and that was whether or not the Shocking Waves Lake Pass would be able to block this bug tide. Lu Yueme was killed by him. The Shocking Waves Lake Pass could be said to be a group of dragons without a leader. More importantly, they probably did not know that their pass master was dead. Currently, there were only a few Cloud River Realm and True Lake Realm cultivators guarding the pass. If the scale of the insect race was too large, the Shocking Waves Lake Pass might not be able to hold on without a divine ocean realm cultivator guarding it. Another point was that Lin Yu had sent a message to the Dark Moon Forest Pass, summoning all the myriad Demon Ridge cultivators who were out and making preparations to guard the pass. However, there was no one at the Shocking Waves Lake Pass to remind them. Although he knew that the insect race was coming, he could not rush over to warn them. He could only hope that they would be able to detect it as soon as possible and deal with it as soon as possible. They were all accomplished cultivators and not children. There were many things that could not be completely relied on. Each of them should take responsibility. As time passed, Lu Yi slowly recovered. Suddenly, there was an intense wave of spiritual energy coming from outside, accompanied by a buzzing sound. The entire pass was shaking. Lu Yi hurriedly pushed open the door and rushed out. His body swayed and he flew to the top of the pass's wall. Looking up, his heart sank. In his vision, there were insect race figures everywhere. There were insects crawling on the ground and flying in the air. The scale of this insect race was much larger than he had imagined. The closest insectoids were only 5 kilometers away from the mountain pass. At this moment, the many fortifications on the mountain pass were unleashing their powers. Through the activation of the formations, attacks were launched toward the insectoids. Every time a vacuum was created, it would be quickly filled by new insectoids. Little Pass Master. A few cultivators saw him appear and bowed in unison. Lu Yi glanced over. Among them, Ingwuji squeezed out a smile, feeling inexplicably nervous. Although this Little Pass Lord had been in the Dark Moon Forest Pass for more than 3 months and had interacted with him many times, Ingwuji did not know why, but every time he saw this Little Pass Lord, he would feel a little flustered. The Little Pass Master had never made things difficult for him. Moreover, they were about the same age, and Ingwuji was even older. He did not know where this invisible pressure came from. He could only attribute it to the pressure unique to the Spirit Sea realm. Go do what you need to do, Lu Yi said. The few people felt as if they had been pardoned and quickly worked together to activate the spirit array, activating the power of the spirit artifact placed in the array eye. Lin Yu flashed over and smiled. I haven't congratulated Junior Brother for reaching the second order. When she returned yesterday, she had noticed Lu Ye's breakthrough. However, she had been busy defending the Heart Pass and did not have the time to mention it. It's only the second order. There is still a big gap between me and senior sister, Lu Yi nodded lightly. Lin Yu laughed. You've only been cultivating for a short time, yet you've already reached the second order Divine Sea realm. I'm afraid that in a few years, your cultivation will surpass mine. When that time comes, don't despise senior sister for being stupid. Senior sister, what are you saying? Ingwuji and the others were busy with the task at hand, so the conversation between the two Spirit Sea realm cultivators went into their ears. What does senior sister think about this insect tide? Lu Yi changed the topic. The scale is very large. It can be said to be the largest insect tide we've encountered in the past 2 years. Lin Yu's expression became serious. If the mountain pass was at its peak, it wouldn't be difficult to stop this insect tide. However, Junior Brother also knows that many people in the mountain pass have been transferred away. Not only the Dark Moon Forest Pass, but also the other mountain passes of both camps. Therefore, if we want to stop this insect tide, we have to work together. Most importantly, they had to find a way to kill the Spirit Sea realm insects in the insect tide in order to reduce the pressure on the pass. I understand, Lu Yi nodded. Lin Yu hesitated. Actually, I'm not too worried about our side. I'm more worried about Shocking Waves Lake Pass right now. This site's latest domain name. Chapter 1078. This kind of thing would never happen in the past. The two camps were opposing each other with deep hatred. The more unlucky the enemy was, the happier they would be. However, times had changed. There was actually a day where they had to worry about the enemy's situation. Life was unpredictable. The two mountain passes were 500 kilometers apart from each other, which was equivalent to 2 bright lamps in the wilderness. The insects were attracted to them like moths to a flame. If one of the lamps was extinguished, the other lamp would have to bear a lot of pressure. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the relationship between them would be interdependent if the lips were gone. Lin Yu was also worried about what Lu Yi was worried about. She did not know if the Shocking Waves Lake Pass had discovered Lu Yueme's death. She did not know if they had sent a message to ask for help. The situation was completely different when there was a Spirit Sea Realm warrior guarding a mountain pass and when there was no Spirit Sea Realm warrior guarding it. Lu Yi was now disguised as Li Taibai, a cultivator of the Wanmo Ridge. He naturally could not sit crooked. He said, "Everyone has their own business. Senior sister, don't worry too much. The cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance are not children. If the situation is bad, they will ask for help." "I hope so." Lin Yu nodded slightly. While the Dark Moon Forest Pass was being attacked by a large number of insectoids, the Startling Waves Lake Pass was also experiencing the same thing. The fissure was located in the center of the two passes. The insectoids came out in two batches, one headed north to the Dark Moon Forest Pass, while the other headed south to the Startling Waves Lake Pass. The cultivators of the Grand Heaven Alliance at the Shocking Waves Lake Pass did not receive any warning, but their reaction was not slow. When they realized that it was a large-scale insect tribe, they sent a message to everyone and returned to the mountain pass early to prepare for defense. They each performed their own duties and were ready for battle. However, the cultivators at the mountain pass soon realized awkwardly that their leader was nowhere to be seen. They could not get any reply even when they tried to send a message with the guard token. When a cultivator from the Sky Yuan sect checked the battlefield mark, he was shocked to find that Lu Yueme's mark had disappeared. The leader was dead. No one knew how she died, and no one knew where she died. The only thing that was certain was that she had died in the past 2 days, because just 2 days ago, someone had seen Lu Yueme's figure at the mouth of the mountain pass. The cultivators of the Sky Yuan sect were deeply grieved. The current situation did not allow them to be too sad. They could only hurriedly send a message to their superiors. While reporting Lu Yueme's death, they also reported that the pass was about to be attacked by the insect swarm. Shocking Waves Lake Pass belonged to Heaven's Gate, one of the 12 gates of the War Province. When Heaven's Gate received the news, they were also shocked. After verifying Lu Yueme's mark, they confirmed that she was really dead. They could only find a way to dispatch a 6th-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator from nearby to rush to Shocking Waves Lake Pass and take over Lu Yueme's position as Pass Master. It was under such circumstances that Qin Shao came to Shocking Waves Lake. One, it wasn't that the Haotian Alliance didn't want to send more warriors of the Spirit Sea Realm. It was just that they were short of manpower and couldn't send more warriors of the Spirit Sea Realm in a short period of time. It wasn't easy to find a 6th-order master. A 6th-order Divine Sea Realm cultivator was not a low cultivation. When Yang Kai arrived at Shocking Waves Lake Pass, the insect race had besieged it. Looking from a distance, the entire mountain pass was no longer visible, and what entered his field of vision was a sea of insects of all shapes and sizes. Yang Kai used his thunder technique to clear a path through the swarm of insects and rushed toward Shocking Waves Lake Pass with great momentum. The insect race didn't have any probing when they attacked. They acted based on instinct and went all out as soon as they attacked. They didn't have any strategy and relied on numbers to win. Thousands of miles away, at the 2 mountain passes of the 2 camps of the Haotian Alliance and Myriad Demon Ridge, a great battle broke out almost at the same time. The many fortifications at the mountain passes constantly released their power and killed countless insects. At the Dark Moon Forest Pass, Lu Yi and Lin Yu also killed their way out of the mountain pass several times. They killed the Spirit Sea Realm insects in the swarm to reduce the pressure on their side. After fighting for half an hour, Lu Yi rushed out again. The sword chi in his sword gourd was rampant and turned into elegant swords that could take lives and souls. None of the insects below the Spirit Sea Realm could withstand his attack. Those sword lights seemed to have a mind of their own. They shuttled back and forth in the swarm, reaping the lives of the insectoids. All of a sudden, they gathered in one place and slashed down. Every time this happened, a Divine Sea Realm insectoid would be killed. Lin Yu stood on the city wall of the mountain pass. She was recovering her spirit energy while watching quietly. She was amazed. She had encountered quite a few sword cultivators. Every single one of them was the most orthodox sword cultivator with unparalleled killing intent. This was the characteristic of sword cultivators. However, very few sword cultivators could reach Lu Ye's level. While he killed with an iron fist, he gave off a pleasant feeling. He didn't seem to be killing enemies, but using his sword as a pen. This was the first time Lin Yu saw Li Taibai's true strength. Although Li Taibai had been at the mountain pass for more than 3 months, the two had never fought side by side. In the past, they took turns to go out every time. She didn't know how Li Taibai killed enemies. Until today, she was completely sure that Li Taibai still had the ability to kill enemies above his level, just like his performance when he was in the true lake realm. She couldn't help but wonder if she should ask her martial niece, Tong Shuyao, to come back to the mountain pass. Her martial niece was quite pretty. If she could marry Li Taibai, it would be a good story. If that happened, Li Taibai would really be on her side. But soon she gave up on the idea. If Li Taibai was still in the true lake realm, it might be possible. However, he was in the spirit sea realm now and had a bright future. No matter how pretty her martial niece was, how attractive could she be to him? For the past 3 months, many female cultivators in the mountain pass had shown great interest in the new young pass master. They wanted to get close to him, either intentionally or unintentionally. However, there was no news of him getting close to any of the female cultivators. He didn't even tell anyone about it. He talked. This kind of person looked easy to get along with, but deep down he was extremely arrogant. Not to mention her martial niece, even if she offered herself, she might not be able to move him. All kinds of strange thoughts flashed through her mind. Suddenly, Lin Yu's expression changed. She shouted, "Martial brother Taibai, come back." Li Taibai was so excited that he went deep into the swarm of insects. At this moment, there was only a lot of sword chi wreaking havoc in the swarm of insects. Everywhere it passed, insect corpses fell like raindrops. Li Taibai was nowhere to be seen. There was no response. In the blink of an eye, even the light of the sword chi could not be seen. Lin Yu's expression changed slightly. She wanted to help, but she could not act rashly. She was the backbone of the mountain pass. Even if something happened to Li Taibai, as long as she was there, the mountain pass would not be in chaos. However, if she and Li Taibai were to be trapped, it would be troublesome. Time ticked by. After half a cup of tea's time, the sword light that looked like a waterfall reappeared in her field of vision. Lin Yu took a long breath, and her towering chest heaved up and down. He was finally back. The sword dragon spun like a top, tearing a hole in the dense swarm of insects. Soon, it broke out of the encirclement and landed beside Lin Yu. The sword chi retracted, revealing Li Taibai. Lin Yu scolded, "Junior brother, how could you be so reckless? You really scared me to death." Lu Yi laughed. "I was too excited to kill. I made senior sister worry. There can't be a next time." Lin Yu looked at him sadly. She had dragged a strong man from the wild to help her, and she was very satisfied with this man's strength. In the past 3 months, he had taken a lot of pressure off her. If he died in the swarm, how could she find such a good helper in the future? There won't be a next time. Lu Yi kept nodding. There won't be a next time. Lu Yi kept nodding. Lin Yu realized that her expression was not right, so she quickly adjusted her expression. "Junior brother, stay here. I'll go kill some insects." With that, she rushed out of the mountain pass. She did not go too deep. It was not that she was timid, but as the leader of the mountain pass, she had to consider the safety of the entire mountain pass. She could not act recklessly like Li Taibai, so she limited herself to 300 meters away from the mountain pass and looked for the stronger insects to kill. On the city wall of the mountain pass, Lu Ye's doppelganger took out 2 top-grade spirit stones and held them in his hands to replenish his energy. There was no other way. The real body had the talent tree to burn the impurities and replenish his energy by taking a lot of spirit pellets. However, the doppelganger could not do that. Although the doppelganger had a piece of the talent tree's root, it did not have any fuel. It could only use spirit stones to replenish its energy and maintain the purity of its spiritual energy so that it would not affect its strength. At this moment, Lu Ye's real body was flying across the sky toward the Shocking Waves Lake Pass. He was still a bit worried. Of course, he also wanted to take this opportunity to get away from the Dark Moon Linyu, which was something he had planned for a long time. The insectoids were very strong. This time, the scale of the swarm was not small, mainly because of the number of Spirit Sea Realm insectoids. Li Taibai and Lin Yu were guarding the Dark Moon Forest Pass, so it was not a big problem. However, if the same effort was put on the Shocking Waves Lake Pass, the pass without Spirit Sea Realm warriors might not be able to withstand the swarm. 1,000 miles was nothing for Lu Yi at this moment. He kept moving forward and soon arrived at a place 100 miles away from the Shocking Waves Lake Pass. Looking from afar, Lu Yi frowned. There were obviously more insectoids at the Shocking Waves Lake Pass, and the swarm was larger. This might be the scale of the swarm itself, or it might be the result of the Shocking Waves Lake Pass's defense being weak. Did the Haotian Alliance not send any Spirit Sea Realm warriors? No matter how tight their manpower was, they should have sent a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator over since the pass was attacked. Looking at the time, the Haotian Alliance should have known about Lu Yuemei's death. He sighed in his heart. In the end, he still had to clean up the mess he had caused. This was the cycle of the heavenly Tao, and retribution was not pleasant. He did not regret killing Lu Yuemei at all. In that situation, one of them had to die. Even if he did not want to fight to the death, Lu Yuemei would not let him go. However, if other cultivators of the Haotian Alliance were involved, Lu Yi would feel bad. He could even defend the Dark Moon Forest Pass with all his might, let alone the Shocking Waves Lake Pass of the Haotian Alliance. Lu Yi took out Hupa from the spiritual beast pouch and placed it on his shoulder. The aura of the master and the servant merged instantly, and he dashed toward the Shocking Waves Lake Pass quickly. The latest domain name of this site was 1. Chapter 1079. When they were 10 miles away from the swarm, the insects on the periphery turned to face them. Li rushed all the way. His divine sea realm aura and spiritual energy fluctuation were obvious. He had no intention of hiding at all. The insects, who were extremely sensitive to spiritual energy fluctuations, were naturally attracted like moths to a lamp. Yi flashed out of Hupo's body and followed closely beside Lu Yi. She took the lead to activate her technique and attacked the insects in front of her. Lu Yi didn't release his power. He closed the distance a little and then waved his saber. Streaks of sharp saber light slashed forward like crescent moons. Wherever it passed, the insectoids were sliced in half. The incisions were clean and smooth, and the insectoids' blood and corpses spilled out. Hupa also roared on Lu Ye's shoulder. Every tiger roar contained a strange power, which slowed down the movements of many insects and made their bodies stiff. As early as at the Spirit Stream realm, Hupa had shown the ability to suppress the soul. Its tiger roar could often cause a certain degree of impact on the enemy's mind. Now, it was also a demonic commander-level monster, which was equivalent to the true lake realm of the human race. The tiger roar's power was naturally stronger. Facing a divine sea realm master like Lu Yuemei, the tiger roar had no effect. But facing these insects with low intelligence, the tiger roar's power was undoubtedly displayed. A human, a spirit, and a tiger. After 3 years, they joined forces again. Wherever they passed, insects fell like raindrops. In just a few miles of confrontation, countless insects died. Lu Yi led Yi and crashed into the dense swarm of insects, killing in all directions. On the city wall of the Shocking Waves Lake Pass, a figure was sitting. His aura was as weak as a candle flame. It was Chen Xiao, who was ordered to come to the Shocking Waves Lake Pass. 2 hours ago, he was still high-spirited, but now he was gasping for breath. His injury was too serious. The left half of his body was almost missing. The squirming internal organs in his abdomen could be clearly seen. From the jagged marks on the edge of the wound, he seemed to have been bitten by something. With such a serious injury, he was destined not to live for long. He held on and didn't die because he reported the situation to Heaven's Gate and asked them to send more powerful Divine Sea Realm Masters. But the feedback he got was hopeless. The Heaven's Gate asked him to hold on for another 2 hours, because even if they were transferred, it would take some time for the warriors of the Spirit Sea Realm to arrive. 2 hours. Chen Xiao smiled bitterly. Not to mention 2 hours. In his current situation, he wouldn't even be able to last for the time it takes to brew a cup of tea. While he was communicating with his superiors, Chen Xiao suddenly raised his head. His eyes, which were so dim that they were about to be annihilated, suddenly brightened up. His lips, which were as white as paper due to excessive blood loss, moved slightly. What's that sound? Besides Chen Xiao, a medical practitioner was desperately circulating her spiritual energy to treat his injuries. Her slender figure wanted nothing more than to squeeze out all of her spiritual energy, but it was of no help to Chen Xiao's injuries. Bean-sized tears silently rolled down her cheeks. Hearing Chen Xiao's question, the medical practitioner said, "My lord, you must hold on." As for sounds, she could only hear the flapping of the insectoids' wings and the squirming of their mouths. Chen Xiao shook his head. "There's a sound." His eyes brightened. "It's a tiger's roar. Someone's coming." Demonic beasts wouldn't come here for no reason, but that was indeed a tiger's roar. In other words, it should be a cultivator from the beast tamer school. However, he did not know how many people there were and how strong they were. "Quick, alert the others. There's a big insect in the insect swarm." A big insect did not refer to its size, but its strength. Only an insectoid that was comparable to a 7th-order Divine Sea cultivator or above would be called a big insect. This was the tacit understanding that the cultivators of the 9 states had accumulated over the past 2 years of fighting against the insect plague. There was a big insect in the insect swarm that besieged Shocking Waves Lake Pass. He had suffered a loss at the hands of a big insect. In the fierce battle, his protective spirit energy was broken and half of his body was bitten off. If not for the fact that he was very close to the pass at that time and had many cultivators at the pass to help him, he would have lost his life on the spot. Under normal circumstances, a human with similar strength would be able to deal with an insectoid swarm. This was because human cultivators had all kinds of methods, while the insectoids relied on their instincts. No matter how weak a cultivator's foundation was, it would not be a problem for them to fight 2 or even 3 insectoids at once. The key point was that there were many big insects in this insect swarm. Not only were there comparable to a 7th-order Divine Sea cultivator, there were even some comparable to an 8th-order Divine Sea cultivator. He had already suffered a great loss, so naturally he did not want others to follow in his footsteps. The medical cultivator beside him hurriedly urged her spirit energy and shouted, "Be careful, there are many big insects in this insect swarm." Although she tried her best to shout, her voice was still drowned out by the sound of the many insectoids flapping their wings. It was unknown whether the newcomer heard her or not. Lu Yi heard her, but there was no room for him to evade. At this moment, he had charged into the insect swarm and was surrounded by insectoids from all directions. In particular, there were a dozen or so insectoids with fierce auras that brought him great pressure. These dozen or so insectoids should be canine insectoids. At first glance, they looked like canines. They had 4 limbs and short tails, but their bodies were covered in thick carapaces that provided them with strong protection. Lu Ye's saber light slashed at them, destroying ordinary insectoids, but to these canine insectoids, it was like scratching an itch. Their mouths were like those of crocodiles with sharp teeth. If one was accidentally bitten, it would not end well. The dozen or so hound insects formed a semicircle and surrounded Lu Yi, their powerful and fierce auras instantly allowing Lu Yi to perceive their existence. There were too many of them. Even Lu Yi did not dare to face them head-on. He could only leap up and rush upwards, looking for an opportunity to break through. The hound insects followed. In terms of speed, they were far inferior to Lu Yi. If it was a normal escape, Lu Yi could easily shake them off. Hound insects were not known for their speed, but being surrounded by them, Lu Yi could not move at full speed. No matter which direction he fled in, there would be a large number of insectoids blocking his way. With a crackle of the mountain saber, he forcibly carved out a path of blood. The dozen or so insectoids were getting closer and closer. The leading insectoids had already opened their bloody mouths and were biting at him. Seeing that there was no way to escape, Lu Yi could only push his spirit energy. With him as the center, an invisible force suddenly spread out and turned into an attack. The insectoids around him all stiffened as if they had been struck by lightning. Even the hound insects were no exception. Using spiritual energy to deal with the insect race was the fastest way to achieve results. The insect race was not intelligent, which meant that their spiritual energy was weak. Therefore, spiritual sea realm cultivators of the human race could easily suppress the insect race's spiritual energy. However, this method could not be used too often. After all, spirit energy was limited even for divine sea realm cultivators. Moreover, replenishing it was not as convenient as replenishing spirit energy. Once too much was consumed, it was easy to fall into a state of dispirited state. While the insectoid stiffened, Lu Yi waved the mountain saber in his hand and growled, "Eh." Even though they had not seen each other for a few years, their minds were still connected. Yi quickly flashed back into Hu Po's body to hide. In an instant, the surrounding space darkened as if a bright moon had risen. The cold moonlight scattered, and the dense moonlight bloomed wantonly like iron flowers. The second style of the tyrant blade, crescent moon. This was the most suitable blade technique to be used when surrounded. Thud, thud, thud. The area around Lu Yi within a radius of 300 feet was almost cleared out, and it was unknown how many insectoids had died. Only the hound insects remained unscathed. They were strong enough, and the carapace on their backs provided a thick layer of protection. Even if the crescent moon's blade struck them, it only left a mark on their carapace. However, with the huge impact, the hound insects were still beaten down. They quickly stabilized themselves and pounced at Lu Yi again. However, after Lu Yi used Crescent Moon, he quickly turned around and rushed down toward the mountain pass. The path ahead was blocked. Lu Yi swung his saber to open a path. Hu Po's tiger roar shook the sky. The man and tiger cooperated with each other skillfully. In the Shocking Waves Lake, many cultivators looked in the direction of the source of the commotion. They were all extremely nervous. With Chen Zhao's example, everyone was worried about the newcomer. They did not know if he could successfully break through. The huge insectoid swarm suddenly began to wriggle. It was as if salt had been sprinkled into a pot of hot oil. Immediately after, a saber ray slashed out from the wriggling area. Following closely behind the saber ray was a flickering figure. Chen Zhao quickly said, "Quickly open the formation." There was no need for him to give any orders. The cultivator in charge of the defensive formation immediately activated the jade pendant in his hand and opened a hole in the formation in the direction of the newcomer. Lu Yi entered in a flash, and the hole closed up again. The insectoids behind him were isolated outside, and they were drowned in attacks. After charging into Shocking Wave Lake, Lu Yi released and withdrew his divine sense, and he roughly understood the situation here. The situation here was much worse than the Dark Moon Forest Pass. Many cultivators were injured or killed, and there were many insectoid corpses left on the city wall. It was obvious that the insectoids had broken through the defensive line more than once, but they were all blocked by the cultivators here. In comparison, the Dark Moon Forest Pass's defense was obviously more stable. At the very least, the insectoids had not broken through the defensive line there. There were two reasons for this situation. First, the insectoids here were stronger, and second, there were no masters here. On the Dark Moon Forest Pass, there were two Spirit Sea Realm cultivators, Li Taibai and Lin Yu. They took turns to kill the enemy, greatly reducing the pressure on the pass's defense. There were no such conditions here. However, there was the aura of a Spirit Sea Realm cultivator. Lu Yi came to Chen Zhao's side and looked at his tragic injuries. He cupped his fists and saluted, "Law Division's Lu Yi greets senior brother." Chen Zhao looked behind Lu Yi, as if he was expecting something. Lu Yi understood and said, "I was alone. I was passing by and noticed something was wrong, so I came to take a look. Junior brother Lu is considerate." Chen Zhao sighed slightly, It must have been hard for you to rush in. Didn't you encounter those insects? Lu Ye's cultivation was only at the second-order spirit sea realm, far inferior to Chen Xiao. If he had really encountered those insects, he would not have been lucky. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.